Welcome everybody to MogTalk. Today is not October 16th, 2021. And if you are unfamiliar with MogTalk, it's a show based around the Final Fantasy XIV community discussing everything from Savage Raiding to Chocobo Racing. We have today the best healers in the game. Yeah, I'm just going to say we got the best healers in the game to come on and talk about Endwalker healing and their thoughts on a lot of information that came out from the media tour. Before we go too much further, of course, I want them to introduce themselves so you know exactly who they are. Oryza, can you tell everybody who you are?
Oh, me first? Oh.
Yeah.
I'm Oryza. I heal, I do like world prog, and I stream sometimes.
That's good. That's good. You know what? Let's go with that. Momo?
Hey everybody, my name's Momo. I'm a 14 content creator, mainly focusing around healers, but you know we dabble in other stuff too.
Okay, all right. And then Kyo.
Hello everyone, I'm Kyo. I'm healer for Thoughts Per Second and do world racing. Yeah.
All right. So as you see, the best healers in the world that could ever exist are on the show today to talk about the healing in Endwalker. I am not a healer, just to let everybody know. Personally, I'm not one, but I do enjoy it. I think it's cool. I think I like Final Fantasy XIV healing, in my own opinion. And I did get a chance to play Sage a little bit. But I think I want to know what everyone else's opinion is just right off the bat about healers and what you've seen with the new information coming out. Are you excited? Are you a little bit sad? Or are you just cautious? And that's just an open question for all three of you.
Probably depends on fight design. That's the biggest thing, I think.
Okay.
Based on the changes made, I mean, there's certain aspects I like. I like us getting a tank cooldown. That's pretty cool. Mm-hmm. But as far I agree with Momo. It's going to depend a lot on fight design because we got yet again our heals augmented a lot. So the encounters need to sort of step up to require that, or else we're going to feel bored again.
Okay. Oryza?
I feel the same way. I also think a lot of people think that the fight design is going to change as a result. Like these changes imply that fights will change, but I do not agree. So I guess you could say I'm cautious or cynical, but
I mean, I don't believe you have to Shadowbringers.
I mean, we've been saying that every expansion, like, oh, there's a bunch of new healing stuff. I guess the fights are gonna have to change, and then they don't.
Yeah, particularly with the tank damage actually is because we have like the tank cooldown, and tank cooldowns are also like really strong now, so we'll see.
I miss untelegraphed busters.
I think it's really important when you look at the healer's toolkit that you look at the other abilities too in the overarching like job roles, right? So like Red Mage got Magic Barrier, tanks all have like more mitigation now, Divine Veil heals, Shake It Off heals. Gunbreaker has an X cog now.
Reaper has a regen.
Reaper has Arcane Crest is absolutely nutty. I don't know, that needs to get nerfed. They also have Summoner with Rekindle, which is 1200 potency heal every Phoenix window. That's single target. So like they all these new actions across like every job. It's kind of insane. So yeah, it is kind of worrying if they don't kind of increase fight outgoing damage in fights to an extent. Like obviously I don't think we're gonna see anything too drastic, but yeah, it's definitely gonna depend on the encounter design.
So on that note, I do want to go ahead and say this because it needs to be said. Anything that we talk about with the media tour is that the potencies and all the other stuff is subject to change, right? The stuff will change. It's not final, anything else like that. But it's important for us to talk about even if it's going to change because we need to have our thoughts out there in case it doesn't change, right? So there are some things, and they have their own way they want to do the balancing and everything else. But it's not horrible for us to start talking about this and start talking about some of the potencies, start talking about not to freak out, but to have these conversations of, hey, this looks a little bit broken at the moment, right? Because that's just part of what it is. Maybe they'll hear something about that and they'll change it when they wouldn't have changed it before. Because they're busy making a whole fucking expansion, which is supposed to be the biggest expansion I think they've came out with so far. So I do want to also put on this note the tank part of it. Because, I mean, you're right. Talking about the other job roles and everything else is important because they all correlate with how healers are going to have to heal them, right? And the different things that they can do to support the healers and how that's all going to turn out. Tanks, one of the big changes is that they're going to have that little tiny 4-second window. 3 of them, at least, will have a little 4-second window of super strong tank defensive, right? Do we think that tanks are going to be able to execute that?
Yeah.
Good ones will, yeah.
Okay.
I mean, that's what you should be doing right now, actually. Yeah, like most optimized cooldown tanks, they usually press their cooldowns 10 to 15 seconds in advance of a buster.
Mm-hmm.
Unless it's not going to be like a swap buster.
Yeah, but this is not. You're supposed to do it right before the buster in this situation, right? Not way before it.
Wait.
Timing that's easier, right? Because you just react to the cast bar.
Yeah, so right now it's reactive is better, or like doing it right then, because if you pop it early, you're not going to get that 4-second window.
Wait, really? That design is kind of counterintuitive.
I mean, it's similar to Sheltron in a lot of ways, like how it existed before, and TBN. So, and I mean, we've already basically had that. Just got to be a little tighter, and I don't think that's very hard to do with cast bars, as long as it's still cast bar busters.
Mm-hmm. I mean, for you guys, it's going to be perfectly fine. For like really, players who actually are trying to be good players, it's going to be nothing for people who don't really try to be a better player and just kind of play and just say, I know what I'm doing, and just click buttons like I did when I was healing. But, I think it might be like, for you, very boring going into Endwalker healing because of how much stuff is actually out there. To your point, Momo, now that I'm starting to think about it, it looks like there's a lot of room for where there's just everyone else being a good player is going to make your job very boring, and you're just going to hit one button still to do damage, right?
Yeah.
On the topic of busters, if you just have, I think it was like just Gnast and Flash and Heart of Stone, it was like a 30% mit or something already, which is like a lot. Ridiculous. And Gnast and Flash also has a shield, and Heart of Stone also has an X-Cog on it. And I mean, Gnast and Flash just heals in general.
Yeah.
So it's like, all of this is just like insane. Like, of course, it's only for 4 seconds, that effect, some of it. So like, it has to be like, a single hit buster, or at least like a fast enough buster, and it has to be a single target buster, because if it hits both tanks, then like you can't stack them like that. But even so, that's it's a lot of mitigation for free.
So we either have to get really hard hitting busters, like really, really hard hitting busters that we need to stack all these things for, or very frequent busters to where we have to spread them out. One of the two. If we continue busters as designed, it's going to be silly. Like, we'll just have too many tools.
Right. I can definitely see that, and we have literally no clue what the battle design is going to be for raids. We only know the one dungeon, and granted that is going to be like a casual killer. I hate saying casual like as a derogatory term in some way, but like a player who doesn't, who isn't like really optimized or paying attention and kind of just half-assing everything, is going to kill a lot of those players. But
well, so if the dungeon's an indicator. And sometimes they are, like an intro to dungeons are meant to, I think, teach you the skills that let you jump into raiding at a basic level. And if that's the case, then we're going to get even more mechanics than before, right? With the way this dungeon plays out, which isn't what we were just talking about. So
I'd agree, but also technically kind of disagree, because like the dungeons in Shadowbringers were up until like you got your full toolkit fairly, more difficult, I would say, than the previous iterations throughout the expansions. Also, something like Dawn Meg and what's it called? What's the first one? Holmeinster, yeah. They have like these mini busters on the ads that just for some reason just go away come the 75 dungeon and onwards, which is like really weird to me.
Yeah. I don't know. We'll see. You're right. It's just one dungeon. We don't know. It's supposed to just like this is a PR dungeon too, by the way, because they showed it at Media Tour. This is them showing off their dungeon. So I'm assuming they put a lot of work into it to try to entice people a bit. So I mean, we'll see. But okay, let's just talk about healers for a bit here. Let's just talk about what you've seen, and it sounds like they're going to be in a good spot, but the good spot is going to be good for players who aren't like super crazy good at the game, because it's going to be a little bit easier. Like it's not going to be as hard to heal is what we're thinking. Is that what you guys believe at the moment? If you had to guess.
Hard to say.
Healing has historically been a lot about timing.
Mm-hmm.
You know, so in that sense, you can make difficulty by just making it so that the heals have to go in a very specific time.
Yeah,
and that can maintain the difficulty no matter what the kits, whatever becomes of the kits.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess we'll have to see in that regard. Like again, it's encounter design again, like we talked about it before.
Yeah.
I think it's pretty interesting that they actually made a healing mastery trait, because it makes it feel like they're trying to make off GCD healing much less valuable than before by increasing these potencies. I don't know if that's actually what their goal is. It probably won't do anything, but it does feel like they went that route for that reason.
And doesn't it buff lilies for white mage anyway? So
it buffs the potency of Rapture and Souls, I think.
Yeah, so they're like main tools.
Yeah, it makes them up to the same as Cure 2 and Medica.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, I think we should start getting into it with the thing that people want to hear the most right now is thoughts and opinions on the new healer, Sage. Early impressions, you guys?
It's okay.
It's okay?
It's
Really?
I don't think it's anything special.
Don't think it's special? You think it's just kind of like whatever? It's going to be just a normal healer?
I feel like it's quite literally almost a scholar copy. Just plays it very differently.
I'm a little sad they gave it 2 quality life increases that I was hoping Scholar would get for years, which is 1, emergency tactics. It's just a more usable version of emergency tactics. And 2, directed fairy heals on Embrace. Sage got both of those things that I've wanted for years on Scholar, which is, yay, good for Sage. Being able to fully control the Embrace without awkwardness. And it doesn't seem to have any contradictions like the Scholar kit does, where things just don't interact well within its own kit. So, but it's also a lot of interesting interactions. We'll have to play with it to see how they all play out. But
it was confusing, dude. When I looked at it, it wasn't straightforward for me. I guess because I'm simple. I guess I don't know. Like it looked like a very complicated mess for me to try to figure out.
There's a lot of pitfalls. There's a lot of buttons that if you push it wrong is a huge waste. Just in general. And there's a pitfall of, like, for example, shielding. I need to shield for this or we die. Well, I hope you pushed your button to make your heals actually a shield. Because if you miss up that and you don't shield, like, it's just much easier to do that than Scholar just push Sucker and you're done. Or Astro, same thing with Aspected Helios currently.
Yeah.
So
on the flip side, however, their Sage's shields are much faster application, which is nice.
Yeah.
And they're able to shield on the move pretty easily versus Scholar having to plant and cast a Sucker or time of deploy.
Their spread low equivalent is also easier to use, right? Because it's just like push the button, then push your Sucker instead of like having to ad load someone.
Mm-hmm. The only downside is that their shields are weaker than Scholar's overall.
Yeah. But their soil is significantly better.
Oh yeah.
Oh yeah.
That's cool. Well, it is, but soil is technically like an 18-second cooldown versus what the tooltip says. And
if you're standing in it the whole time.
Yeah, that's what I mean. So like, it is. I do like Sage's better. I'm kind of salty about that, but
it's 15 yalms, man.
Yeah, it's basically big CU.
It's double the range of soil.
Yeah.
It also it's free, whereas like I guess like on Scholar, I'm not really a Scholar main, I guess, unlike these two, but I always felt like using soil was like, oh, but I want an energy drain or like whatever, or like just an AF flow in general. But with Sage, it's just like you only can use these things on healing, so you might as well just hit that soil button like all the time, because as long as you don't need it in the next 30 seconds, you might as well just hit it because it's free.
So just to let you know, when I was playing Sage, again, I told you this before we started, I was pressing the main heal and just hitting every single button to make it start on a countdown. And I had no clue what I was doing because I just couldn't, like, just looking at it and just prepping myself before we went in, I was like, I don't know And then like I would press all these buttons and people's health, were going down. I'm like, how do I heal people? Like it just felt like the health wasn't going up. But then for like a good, like, I don't know, 10, 15 seconds, no one took any damage. And so it just, that's the shield and work there. But I had no clue what was really happening.
I think go ahead.
It's just a similar feel to playing Scholar. Like you
Yeah.
have the same problem. You cast Sucker, people's health aren't going up because you're doing 150 potency heal. It's like you just gotta get used to. Like,
Speaking of that, actually, one of Sage's pros is that they actually have like a weaker. Well, it's like the current version of Medica, but you know how it gets increased in Endwalker. But like it's 300 points of heal that they can spam versus something Scholar can't really do because they're locked to ET every 15 seconds. It's actually kind of like a pro because they also have a version of ET, so they can ET it plus spam that 300 points of heal, which is kind of nice.
Yeah. So real quick, I probably should have asked this at the beginning. How do you like the look of Sage? Do you like it aesthetically?
Yeah.
It's
cool.
okay.
Why are you just so like unopinionated on this? I think it looks fucking amazing. I think it looks like the best healer that they've made so far aesthetically, dude. It's just beautiful. Everything about it.
I feel like this comes from it being a new job though. Like they're just like the same with the Reaper, right? Like Reaper also has really nice animations compared to like current jobs. It's just like one of those things where it's just like what?
I like Astro better still, so
Yeah, Astrologian's sick.
sorry.
Man, it's by the way, in every single sound effect of those, it's just like a laser shooting.
Okay, I actually don't like that. I'm not a fan of like over the top like sound effects or animations on MMOs.
Oh my god, dude. I think it's for like the entry level healer that wants to do shield healing, they're all gonna pick Sage.
I think they should. Scholar is the hardest. Yeah. Scholar is still going to be the hardest healer to learn, I feel, in Walker.
You don't want a 0 DPS healer playing Sage though.
Well,
yeah. Well, the thing is, you're only losing. I think I feel like that's like over like exaggerated, I guess, a bit. Where because you're only losing the embrace. I was actually
dungeons, right?
Yeah, I was worried that the healing was actually going to be more focused on their DPS, and when I just saw that like pretty much the only thing you lose from not doing damage is cardio, I was like, okay, well, this is pretty much just like every single healer that we have right now.
I think the big difference with I don't know how the numbers are going to turn out is that when you increase your damage overall, you increase your healing too. I don't know, maybe it doesn't fucking matter. Because, I mean, when you have a Scholar, it's the fairy's healing for you while you're doing damage. I mean, technically you're healing while doing damage, right? So I don't feel like it's anything that's really different, even though a lot of people are talking about, hey, this is really big deal. It's a healer that if you do damage, you heal more. But I feel like it doesn't really change anything.
It's such a small percent of healing and it's only on one target ever at a time, that it's not going to be that substantial when you lose it. It's notable most in like the ability to like keep regens on the tank if they're taking a lot of sustained damage. You lose that if you're suddenly having to spam single targets or AoE heals. But it's not going to be impactful.
Yeah. We also still don't really know how the fair is going to work in Endwalker. There's like a lot of questions still going on about how the targeting system will work. People say it's more quote unquote responsive. We can't really test that until the job actually comes out. So there's like a lot of questions that like we're still uncertain of.
I mean, I didn't do any serious stuff. Did anyone that went to the media tour do like a serious review on Scholar?
Not that I could find. They're all like
there are any
Sage.
Scholar players.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just you just need a healer player that goes up and tests all the healers out, right?
Yeah. Well, there's only so much you can do, right? You can only do like stuff on a striking demo or like that dungeon. I think most people played Sage.
No one's gonna take Scholar to the dungeon.
There was like one video I think that I saw Scholar in dungeon because people were saying how Adlo is now applied instantly, so you can deploy it right away versus having to wait like that split second to deploy it after applying Adlo. I saw that being thrown around. I'm not sure how true that is. Again, that's something we have to test once the job comes out, but it'd be pretty interesting.
I saw a clip of somebody casting it and mashing the deploy, and it went off with the shield. So I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, technically, if you wanted to test all the healers, I guess you're right. You would have to go to the dungeon like 4 times for actual real testing. to try it out because you can't really target dummy. You can't really do that much on. But
we need to see what it looks like in like a trial, for example. See how
and
it
on our
feels.
servers.
That's
I think
another thing is if 1.5 second GCD plus weaving. Yeah, I guess we'll just have to see.
Mm-hmm. Well, I mean, I guess with still on Sage here, I'm actually kind of surprised. So, Momo, you're pretty much just like, okay, it's just another healer. You're just kind of short. There's no.
It's not that it's not a healer. It's the exact same thing as Scholar with its own pros and cons. That's basically what it is.
Okay. Do you all think that it's just basically a Scholar?
Some of the skills are almost 1-for-1, so I don't know. Okay. I feel like it's pretty close, but
yeah,
they do have like some different stuff. I think like Panheima is like a pretty good example of that. But
Panheima's really good.
Yeah, I agree.
Except the thing with Panheima versus Serif is that Serif is 250 potency more in terms of HPS potential, and it applies bigger shields. However, you only get 2 of those, and it's not as fast as reapplying as Panheima is on different damage sets. And Panheima doesn't heal.
The party can be like spread out all over the place as long as you apply it in the first place.
So it's like, they both have like comparing it to Serif, which I think is probably the most accurate example. They both have their pros and cons in that regard.
Mm-hmm. Okay.
The thing with Serif 2 is that Serif also is going to pretty much hit everybody, because it's just the thing with Serif is that the biggest strength of Scholar versus Serif, or Scholar versus Sage, is that Scholar can heal away from the party where Sage can't really. And I feel like that's always been one of Scholar's biggest core strengths that people don't really talk about a lot.
Yeah, and mechanics where, like, for example, you got to be spread really far out. Think like Diamond Dust Slides or Lions, or like Fate Calibration Beta, for example, where you're all the way across the room. Serif is really good there. It's something that Serif excels at. And Astro and Noct currently can use Horoscope to compensate. It's a very good substitute in terms of far range healing. Sage doesn't have that. So yeah, that's a weakness.
Okay. I mean, I guess adding. Let's just talk about this, because it sounds like you guys are just meh about Sage.
I think it's hype.
I think it's good.
Yeah.
I'm very excited about it. I sort of have a wait and see kind of attitude toward it, but I'm optimistic.
It's always wait and see.
I'm just being objective.
It's also go ahead, Ori.
Okay, I was gonna say, I think with healing tools, for me, it's I like the theory craft about them, but a lot of the time, it's hard to really understand the effectiveness of some of the weirder tools unless you actually get your hands on them in a raid environment. I think, not to jump ahead, but I know people are really excited about Macrocosmos, but I'm very I don't know about it, and I guess I'm kind of trying to reserve a lot of my judgment on it unless until I can actually use it.
Well, let's real quick. I mean, we won't have to go deep into it, but since I don't understand Macrocosmos, and I'm sure there's a handful of people who are watching this who are also healer ignorant here, explain the Macrocosmos real quick.
I guess the TLDR is that for 15 seconds, anyone who takes damage, it accumulates that damage, and at the end of the duration, it will heal you for half of that damage.
Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. That does sound pretty fucking strong.
There's one big question we're waiting on right now, and it's pretty much if you take more damage than your HP pool, i.e. Living Dead, Home Game, where you're taking 200k but you have 1 HP, we're waiting to see if that counts as damage attributed to Macrocosmos. Because if it does, that means you can effectively heal both Living Dead and Home Game back to full HP practically instantly, assuming it works like that, which is going to be a really strong tool and Astrologist's arsenal. It's also really good for tank auto attacks, even if you just need to use it for whatever. I think it's a pretty versatile tool, because if you compare that to something I don't know, Panheima or even Lilybell, I don't think those two have the same versatility as Macrocosmos does.
It should also nullify I hope it does 1 HP mechanics, where it drops you to 1, you just push the button, everybody's back up to full, right?
Yeah, that's something we need to.
Yeah, direct, does it work on those types of skills, or almost direct HP removal type?
We don't know. That's something we have to test. Yeah.
I mean, it's just thoughts, right? Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, I could pull up. I don't have any scholar footage, so actually, no, I can't. I can't tell you anything about that. But I think that if we went back to just in general the bubble of shield healers, which is going to be Sage and Scholar, you know, it's a lot of people were keep saying Scholar's dead because of Sage. Do you guys believe that's definitely not going to be the case? I assume.
Absolutely not.
No,
Absolutely not. Scholar is very strong. The Scholar is the only one of the healers that got a very significant damage buff from these updates. They're the only one. Like the rest of them, they got small increase. Like Mage got a little time off of its palm cast. That's not really a big deal. They got a couple stronger spells. Nothing substantial. But Scholar straight up doesn't get 10 potency from energy drains anymore. It gets 100, which is a huge change. So we'll see. They may be the stronger damage healer now, but it depends if they balance it around that.
Actually, now that we're talking about go ahead. No, you go ahead, Ori.
Okay, I also think that the 1.5 second broil change is like really huge for Scholar. Like, it's just, I guess it's because it's a system level change. You don't really think about it too much, but I mean, in Scholar, you have to like. I'm not a great Scholar player, so like I use Rune 2 a lot to weave stuff. But with this change, you basically, I mean, if you have to double weave and heal really fast, then sure. But you have to use a lot of your Aetherflow stuff at like no loss anymore, or like without having to use Rune 2, I guess, which to me feels like that'd be a pretty big damage gain too.
Yeah, in an optimized setting, and I'm not just talking about speed kills here. If you're pushing in rages, it's still an optimized setting. Normally, Scholar wants to lean on their co-healer a whole lot so that they can broil as much as possible, and that's not the case anymore. Now they can use all their tools while still being optimal on damage, which is a huge buff to the double healer. Like their co-healer gains a bunch from that, not having to do an extra aspect of Helios or Medica 2, for example.
Actually, since we're talking about Scholar real quick, and we have progression healers here, we can talk. How are we feeling about Expedient? Because personally, I feel like that skill is probably a mistake in the game's, like, probably one of the biggest mistakes Square Enix has ever made. I really don't think that skill is healthy for the game, because they're never going to bounce around it. I was actually really surprised, because I had no idea it was sprint. I figured it was going to be like Peloton or something, but the fact that it's a 20-second sprint...
Are you saying it's too good?
I think it's way too good, yeah.
I think it's good too.
I think it's really good, but it's got a lot of potential to throw away a pull with a misuse as well. So it's really a double-edged sword.
I don't think it's going to be an issue for groups like ours, though.
No, I mean
for casuals, I think it's going to be an issue, but
it only could be if you're like, oh man, we really need more mitigation. Let me pop this 10%, and people aren't expecting the sprint.
But like, imagine having Expedient for progression, like for example, or your like rampant strat, right? There's so much movement there to give you way more. I'm not. Don't laugh. You can never
I
escape.
don't think Sprint would have helped that.
No. I'm not saying it would have helped. It would have given you more room for error. Same with Void Gate 2, right? Like Void Gate 2 had a lot of movement. Going
I think it's good for stuff like Titan 2 and Phase 2. Titan, like the second set. Sorry, Phase 1.
Yeah. Titan, yeah.
Maybe adjust the blues, or like I said Dragon Song if your DPS doesn't have sprint. So
Lions.
So go back up. Yeah, Lions as well if you're pointing the Lions out.
The thing is, Square Enix, my biggest issue with Expedient is that Square Enix will never balance mechanics around it. So like, it's only going to give you that edge versus other like healers.
Yeah. Hey man, it's an NA buff too, because our Mario Karts just got so much better.
Oh, true. Yeah, I mean, imagine it for like Grand Octet or something too.
You run too fast, just
too fast, run to a dragon.
I think like I was like kind of having a lot of discussions with people about Expedient, and I think a lot of people just kind of thought it was not great. And I think the thing is, like, I think people are discounting the effect of giving you margin for error when kind of doing anything, but especially like progging a fight, doing re-clears. I think, like, of course, in like a perfect environment, the skill kind of is like way worse than a lot of other skills, because like you don't need sprint in a perfect environment. But like the fact is, people just like mess up a lot, and like it's very frequent for people to go to like the wrong spot and then realize and try to adjust and go to the right spot, but they can't make it in time. And then I think expedient being sprint, which just like Momo, I thought it was gonna be Peloton too. But sprint is like that's a really fast, and it gives you I think in a lot of cases you'll find it give you like that extra bit of leeway for you to not kill each other. So I think like an easy example of this would be in the beginning of 12S Phase 1 where you have Shiva spreads. Now I don't really think you would be using expedient there, but if you were, I think like in a pug, I guess like people are just kind of YOLOing those spreads. But I think if everybody sprinted, it's like easier to separate, because I actually find that like sometimes people separate and they'll barely not make it. They'll look like they made it, but they'll still kill each other. But if they have sprint, I think they would make it and survive.
Yeah. I think it's a tool you can use when you're seeing a mechanic for the first couple of times as well, just to get as much information as possible. Like seeing like basic relativity for the first time. Like I don't know how that would affect. I mean, Kia would probably have a better idea of that. But like maybe that would have saved like, you know, some information polls or something like that.
Potentially. But there's also just, this is a level 80, above 80 skill.
Mm-hmm.
And so this is not going to work in any of the content we have currently. So this is entirely dependent on what they give us. Like
this is hypothetical. Yeah, this is just completely hypothetical, which is really funny because, you know, I get so many comments saying, "Oh, well, you're not going to be able to use in this context." Yeah, no.
Oh, he just made a voice for you, Kyo. Did you hear that?
No. I get so many comments on my YouTube.
What you just said.
No. I get so many comments on my YouTube because I said I was like, I prefaced it with hypothetical scenarios, and people still have the audacity to go into my comment section and say, "But you're not going to have it for UCOB. You're not going to have it for, you know, T."
Oh, you know what's so funny about this conversation is how much more energy you guys have talking about Scholar than you had for Sage.
Well, it's because we know so. Like,
yeah, that's true.
If we had more hands-on with Sage, I think we would have a whole lot more opinions to have. But we haven't really played around with it so much. Like, I see a lot of restrictions in a lot of the tooltips and the gameplay that I see with what they can do, and I just have to see how it plays out.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, the funny thing about this is right now those two jobs are going to be competing for a spot. They're the two
not necessarily.
Not necessarily.
Yeah. Really? As far as we know, the only information that we have that's confirmed is that they don't stack with shields, which isn't really a big deal.
I don't know,
because you can stack like you should theoretically be able to stack Panheima and Serif shields and Adlo deploy.
And they both have like a few regen abilities as well.
Yeah.
For topping.
That's the issue, right? I feel like Scholar Sage is actually it has a strong contender to be the meta comp. Unless they add some serious pure healing requirements that White Mage and Astro.
I mean, it could be a 1% scenario, right?
Yeah, or they could do that, but I really hope they don't do that because that just limits restrictions on comps.
They could also like Astro could just do way more raid DPS than the others, and then you just take it. Like, it's so hard to say, but
we have to, you know, that's going to be a whole lot of practicing and seeing where the dice fall once the potencies are all locked in.
Yeah.
That's another thing is talking about all these potencies, the different job balance, because I think healers are affected the most rather than other jobs by changes in potencies, because our rotations are so simple. You know, damage rotation being 2 buttons means that any change in that potency is going to dramatically change the output of that healer. So it's really hard to say which is going to be meta. For example, when damage is often the meta, or particular heal checks are the meta. It just depends.
Actually, I think that's a good point to bring up. But actually, Scholar and Astro got an indirect buff due to the changes to the other jobs, because every job now is very, very potency heavy in burst windows, and because Astro Legend and Scholar both have raid buffs, they're actually getting more value from those jobs probably in Endwalker than we are getting today.
Yeah, my instinct is that Astro Scholar is going to be meta, but TBD. No, it's so hard to say right now.
Everything's TBD. You just gotta stick to it, man. Just say it's gonna be that way and just win.
No, we gotta say it. YouTube commenters. Momo just
then that dude. That's just
we're trying to save your YouTube comment section.
You know what? It's good when people comment on YouTube, so I don't care. It helps me. So you know, they can just comment on it.
To be fair, though, I feel like raid jobs should be meta and the high, because the thing is when you're balancing raid DPS jobs, and you don't balance for like the highest common denominator, they just underperform like most scenarios. So like I think from like a balance perspective, Scholar and Asho should technically be at the highest point when properly utilized, because it's going to take a much stronger, and it's going to be more rare to get that kind of value from those 2 raid buffs. It's kind of the same with Trick.
It's nice when complexity correlates with a slight increase of performance.
Yeah, because like White Mage and Sage, right? The 2 strengths they have is that they don't have a raid buff, which actually makes them really strong in progression, because like if somebody dies and like, you know, you're going for your kill pull, you're going to get less value from chain or like div or card value potentially. And because those 2 don't suffer from repercussions of people dying, it can give them a little bit of an edge.
More consistent, at least.
Yeah.
Okay.
So speaking of chain, so crit's going to be worse again, right? It's the start of an expansion. I actually like I'm not like super familiar with like the actual scaling of substats. I don't really look into it that much, but like is chain's value, like, is it significantly lower because crit damage is lower?
I don't take this as fact, but I heard a rumor from somebody that they looked at crit rates a bit on the media tour, and that it was actually higher than expected. It wasn't.
No way. That'd be ooh.
And take that with a huge grain of salt.
They said that with the concern that if crit keeps scaling, is this going to go crazy when we get full gear?
That's wild. Yeah, that'd be crazy.
So again, huge grain of salt on that, because I don't even have the link to give you to show you that, but I'll look for it later. But yeah.
Can you imagine getting like 60% crit towards the end of the expansion?
You use chain and litany, and then you're like, just crit everything.
Assuming it works like every other expansion has, chain's going to be low value at release, but chain's also low value in general. It's like 5% rate buff, you know, because 10% crit. So,
though actually, one thing to keep in mind is that chain has more buff synergy with things like Battle Voice and Litany now that those 2 are also 2-minute cooldowns, which may affect its value a little bit.
We got a bunch more auto crits though this expansion though, right?
That's also true. Yeah, that's also true.
Which also diminishes crit buffs.
Yeah, that's actually gonna be really big for Scholar, and actually Scholar especially, just because that's the one job that, you know, that's, you have a higher probability of having a Scholar in your party than like a Dragoon or Bard, right? But the thing with Scholar, right, is like Warrior is going to be probably more detrimental to Scholar's chain value than it is today, and it's really bad today, right? Like Warrior will give like Scholar like 20 to 30 chain DPS, and like jobs like Gunbreaker, Darknet will give like upwards to like 150, maybe a little bit higher depending on like the crit RNG, which is like that difference right there is insane, right? That's 100 plus DPS you're just losing because you have a Warrior. That's probably going to be worse because now IR syncs up with every single chain, whereas like currently it doesn't, and now you have four GCDs under IR plus the big wombo combo, or including the big wombo combo.
Yeah, including it 4.
Yeah, and then you have your two ICs that you're probably going to optimize for 60s as well. So that's
With Warrior not looking good again, or Scholar not looking good if Warrior is meta. So we'll see.
It's a pretty big thing too, because I feel like people they take raid DPS for like as gospel, right? And especially for tank jobs, I think you should focus on ADPS, because a job like Dark Knight's going to look really bad as a raid DPS job, but it's going to look very good as an ATPS job, because Dark Knight can, you know, in a proper environment, proper group, can even beat Paladin in terms of DPS contribution, just because they can pull way more for buff windows. You know, they're getting way more from buffs compared to Paladin.
Yeah. So we're on the tank show now. And so
no. This, I mean, no, it just correlates to healer.
Yeah, no. Yeah, it does. I think a lot of people were kind of sad about Dark Knight when they were looking at the notes, though. If I remember.
No, Dark Knight's insane. I don't know what people smoking.
It's all about the hype. Like, the Dark Knight didn't get anything flashy. It's the same with Scholar. They didn't get anything flashy. None of it looks cool. Yeah. So it's naturally disappointing. But like strength-wise, Dark Knight's as good as ever.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I think, in my opinion, the single target hit that Dark Knight got wasn't as good as the other buffs, but I mean, TBM was already so fucking strong. Like, now that like it just kind of reins them back to being closer to what the other tanks have. So
I think it's the weakest. The thing to keep in mind with Oblation, though, is that it's a 2 charge, which the other tanks didn't get. Mm-hmm. However, it's on a 60-second cooldown, which is, you know, longer than the other tanks' new abilities. So,
but like you could feasibly use it for every double buster if it's like current design, because busters are
back to back like Sheltron.
Yeah.
So I think it has its pros and cons for sure. I think every new ability we got, including like healers, just they all have their pros and cons. Like we could segue this into like Aqua Veil versus Exaltation versus Protraction versus Krasis or
I was
Krasis.
gonna say we should, since we're on tanks, we should probably talk about the tank buffs.
Yeah.
We did that a little bit
The tank
in the
buffs
lobby.
relate to healers. Just everyone watching this is going to get really nerd angry right now.
Tank kits matter so much for healers.
Yeah, so let's talk about tank buffs. Go ahead.
So there's 4 new buffs just for the introduction. Mage got a 15% mitigation cooldown for 8 seconds they can put on a player. Astro got a 10% for 8 seconds with an XCOG-like heal at the end. Scholar has 10% max HP increased, plus it heals it, the amount that it increased, and it has a 10% increased healing received for the duration of 10 seconds. And Sage has one that does a 600 potency heal, 10% mit for 15 seconds, which is the longest duration by a lot, but it costs one of their Adderskull stacks. So, looking at all of those, what do you guys think?
Sage has a 20% healing received buff as well.
Okay. Yeah. I think the most versatile out of all of them is probably Astrologians, just because it can function as mitigation tool and a heal. Like meaning like, you know, if like let's say maybe you just want to use it as like a heal for auto attacks or heal on a DPS who maybe missed a heal, or maybe you're doing like, you know, Black Mage strat where like they don't want to come in for heals for like an AoE, i.e. that was relevant in like Shiva or Diamond Dust and speed kills, something like that. It may be, you know, a lot more versatile in that regard. However, I think White Mage is the strongest probably in its own right, just because it doesn't. The thing with Protraction is that Protraction scales off max HP, which means outside of tanks, it's pretty bad, I would say. Because the value of Protraction is going to lessen depending on who you put it on, right? So like if you put on like a healer or DPS, the HP value increase from Protraction is going to be a lot worse. However, Protraction I think is probably also up there in terms of versatility, just because it can buff like stuff like Divine Veil, TBN shields. It can buff your own shields. It also acts as like a mitigation because effective HP HP increase is like effective mitigation because it doesn't scale off mitigation diminishing returns. So like things like Aqua Veil and Exaltation, they get worse depending on how many cooldowns you have up on said target. So like if you have Sheltron, Rampart Sentinel, like on a Paladin, you put Aqua Veil on that person. Aqua Veil is probably going to be like maybe like 8%. I don't remember the exact formula for it, but it's not going to be 15%. Whereas like stuff like Protraction, that stuff will. So I think they have their pros and cons. Krasis, you know, I think I don't know about you guys, I think that's probably the worst one out of the 4.
That's what I think too.
Krasis,
think about it. Scholar, Sage, Krasis, Thrill Battle, like
that's
biggest
insane.
spread load you've ever seen.
Yeah, they have to do something about that. They can't just have like super shields for everything, dude. There's no way.
I mean, there's got to be some other reason that Scholar Sage is uncombinable. Otherwise, yeah, the potential is very large there.
Yeah.
Regarding like Exaltation and Aquatic Veil, yeah, I think overall I tend to favor Exaltation. I think Aquatic Veil though is like, because to me like the extra 5% of mit is like, I don't see that being anything crazy, but I will say like in emergency scenarios, because Exaltation takes 8 seconds to go off, like it's not like Aquatic Veil might actually just save someone like in Prague, and Exaltation might not, and Protraction might not as well, especially if they're low. So yeah, it's different situations for different skills. So
yeah, like for example, I was talking about Q with this earlier, but like a buster like E10, right, that hits you 4 times very, very massively. That's where Aqua Veil is going to shine. Just anywhere like Stone Crusher, things like that, like things that hit you multiple times are like probably more than 2 or 3 times. I would probably say those kinds of busters are going to give you a lot of value, like Morns too, you know, things like that. Just anything that hits you multiple times at a heavy potency, you're going to get a lot of value from Aqua Veil compared to the other 3, I would say.
Yeah, And I think they got a lot of good feedback on the E10 Buster. I hope they did, because it was a very good Buster.
It was good, yeah.
So if we get more like that, then Aquavale is going to have a lot more value. Momo and I were talking about this before the show started, that Aquavale gets stronger the heavier hitting the Buster is. Not even just multi-hit, but just a single hit. The larger the raw value is, the better that is. But whereas if they're the Busters that we're used to, where they're more medium level, like 1 CD is enough to live it, Aquavale loses value. Especially because oftentimes we have a dramatic cutoff in value of a Buster, whether or not it kills or not. Sometimes all you care about is, did it bring you to 0 or not? In which case, the 5% from Aquavale over the other 10% is probably not going to make the difference. In which case, why have it? Better to have a heal attached or something else attached to it. So it just depends.
Yeah.
So I guess it might be good to talk. Well, go ahead. You had more?
Oh, no. He
Okay.
can go.
No, I just wanted to talk about just the whole concept of giving healers this tank buster mitigation kind of situation. Do we think it's going to be just a healer applies that, or they're applying it on top of something else?
Okay. You mean on top of tanks using their own mitigation?
Yeah, tanks using their own tank mitigation.
If healers can mitigate for tanks and tanks don't have to mitigate, then why the fuck did tanks get all these mitigation skills? It doesn't make any sense. But I will say it's nice for dungeons when you get a duty finder tank who doesn't know how to hit Rampart until they're at 1 HP. So, you can do something about that.
So
it's kind of like they're like, hey, we're gonna give you, how tanks have AoE shields and heals now. It's just hey, now we're gonna return the favor and give healers all personal cooldown for you guys.
So let's do this. Let's just imagine it's going to be required for a tank buster for both the healer and the tank to put up that mitigation. It doesn't feel like it's going to be much different, because you still got to throw up a shield, right? On a tank buster. You still got to throw up something. They are still working together to reduce that damage overall. Although a tank buster, I think right now, can, if you're at full health, stop you from dying from any attack, right? The mitigation from a tank buster or whatever.
Not sure what you're asking. Oh, yeah,
like a cooldown, a tank cooldown, just a single tank cooldown will live through any tank buster.
For the most part. There's a couple busters notably that are strong, really strong, where you need to stack tail end from 011? No, 010. In particular was one of those, where one Rampart, not enough. Rampart Sheltron, no, you're probably still dead. You need more.
I think E12 also
Formless
does
judgment.
a lot, of damage to you. Don't really get it.
Yeah. It's not in one hit, but the two combined, was very large amount of damage.
Yeah, especially on both tanks.
But most busters are just 1 CD at most.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I mean, if that is the case, and you need, going forward, if it's the case where you need the healer to also mitigate you at the same time you're doing your tank buster, and they have to actually do proper coordination, because they're like, hey, we have a tank buster coming up, I can use this, but then I'll have a weaker tank bust or weaker cooldown to use later on that I can only live if the healer does it his tank buster cooldown with me at the same time. So there is going to have to be some sort of a coordination with how they're doing cooldowns a little bit more than maybe what they're doing now. I don't know. Maybe it's all fucking the same. Maybe it's...
Don't underestimate how much a healer focuses on tank busters. They know where the big hit's coming. Well, go ahead. Sorry, Ori.
No.
No.
Go ahead.
I think you're touching on something that concerns me when I think about the new healer and tank kits, and it's when you add more tools, but you're still when you design a fight, if you design a fight such that those tools are necessary, then it becomes harder for lower level players to be able to clear the fight. But if you design it such that the lower level players are still able to clear at the same rates, then the better players have these extra tools and it becomes even easier.
Yep.
So
that's exactly what I was thinking.
So what you're saying about whether this healer is going to be mandatory, well, if it's mandatory, then the lower levels, then tanks are just going to die because their healers aren't just going to use it because I don't know, because they just don't use it. They don't think about it, right? And I don't think obviously we don't know, but going off of experience, how I feel about it is that Square Enix balances Savage tiers mostly around the lower end of players, where it's the extra tools are not really taken into account that much. Maybe a little bit, but not that much. I think these requirements of using this extra stuff, we'll see it in Ultimates. But that's it.
Okay. So maybe not Savage.
We'll see. But I mean, like in Ultimate Prog, I definitely would anticipate it being pretty useful.
I think Living Liquid and VJ are good examples of like proper utilization of our toolkits, but anything past Alexander is just kind of fucking sad.
Yeah, I mean, that's like tank communities and trio mechanics.
Not even just that.
Like
Wormhole didn't require too much utilization of our toolkit. Inception. The thing with Inception is weird though, because like I don't think most groups are doing it properly like they anticipated, right? And pretty sure they didn't anticipate box strat, which completely trivializes the healing. But you look at something like TPS strat, where like you're stacking on like one end of the arena and then moving to like the other side of the arena, so you're taking a lot more damage. There's a lot more healing, a lot more tank damage too. It's like it's kind of hard to say about Inception. Not a fan of J-Waves. I think J-Waves was executed poorly just because it just ends up being a spam heal to get through. There's like what Keo said earlier, the hardest mechanics in this game for healing are ones that we get to time things. Things like Hello World is a good example where you have to like time heals on specific targets because everyone's taking damage at different intervals. So things like that are what makes healing hard to me.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, throwing all this stuff into kits and not making it to where you have to coordinate some between players, and it's just like, oh, well, the tank could literally just not hit any of their cooldowns and you could get past everything. I feel like that would be kind of shitty, but that could be what we're rolling into, right? I mean, I don't know.
So right now, or not, I think without Echo even, in BIS gear, you can just take busters and with no cooldowns and just live. Not all of them. I'm pretty sure you can take Powdered Mark, like the explosion, with nothing, and you just... I mean, you're not even tanking at that point, so it doesn't matter as long as
without
you live, right?
Echo?
I'm trying to remember if it was with or without Echo.
I know you can take it with... I know you... I'm not sure if you take it without Echo. I know you can survive without cooldowns and Echo. I think you start like 30k HP, so I mean, you might be able to, yeah. It's going to be close to that, I feel. But yeah, I mean, that's a good example where you're like, yeah, Powdered Explosion probably won't kill you without any mitigation. Or you need like barely any.
I have definitely forgotten to use mitigation sometimes on like random stuff, and then like I just live and I'm like, okay.
I actually have
dude.
I don't know. I feel like I would rather not see that going into this next Savage. I do want to see where you die if you don't use your cooldown. But then again, like they do harp on this stuff where they don't want things to be so stressful that one person messes up everything for everyone, which is one of the things why they don't want to do hardcore like four-man content, because they're like, oh, well then, you know, one person makes a mistake and then it's all over, you know, that's not fun for anyone. Well, it is for some people, but
Ultimates.
You can design busters like that with downtime in either auto attacks or where the boss has a cast bar and you can just recover, and a tank death is just a tank death. You don't have to create a wipe scenario off of a mistake like that. And I think that's good design, like, because it'll slow you down, creates a handicap, but you can recover and keep going.
Yeah.
So
I think what Ori kind of said earlier too kind of solidifies my statement too. Is like I feel like SE kind of pigeonholed themselves into like a situation where I feel like healers are never going to recover, basically because their role is kind of like I guess unbalanced in terms of like their toolkit, right? Because the thing is they can't make healing hard, because if they do that, then the lower end of players aren't going to be able to, you know, heal, like, do damage, whatever. And that's like a whole nother conversation too we can get into about how in my opinion, I think healer DPS is probably the most influential, especially in progression, just because they don't balance around healer DPS as much as they do like DPS, right? I think E12 is actually a good example where if you properly optimized E12 phase 1 in prog, like you had 3k 4k extra ray DPS than you actually probably were supposed to have, and that 3k 4k ray DPS is monumental in terms of saving you time.
Okay, so
yeah,
go ahead.
I think that healing is very lopsided in that it is like, I mean, it's like the most responsibility, right? Like I think the thing about healing is that like you kind of control whether there's a wipe or not, and you can say the same thing about like DPSing and tanking, right? Like DPS you have to make enrage, and tanking, I guess if you die, I don't really know, but I think the difference with DPSing is that like other people can compensate for each other in DPSing. You see it all the time, but with healing, like if you're two healers well, like sometimes you can't even compensate for the other healer, but like if both healers aren't great, like what is a bard gonna do? They're just like nature's min themselves and pray. Like I don't know, like there's nothing they can do about it, right? So whereas like even if like tank messes up mids, a healer can do something about it. Like the healers, like if DPS is doing less damage, healer can do something about it, or DPS can do something about it. Like everyone can like do something for each other, except like no one can like if someone dies, like I mean, there's like obviously there's like Berays, like I guess you could spam Vercure or something, but like the amount of power you have over like life, if as a non-healer, is like way lower.
You know, that does remind me. They ran into that issue a lot with PvP. And what they did is they just gave everyone potions to heal themselves.
Yeah, and that's the solution. More personals is really the answer to that. If you give people the ability to save themselves, let's like say like 2 personal shield or heals, then we would see a shift in that dynamic a little bit.
Yeah,
Yeah, I really missed when DPS had utility, like the Fizz range stuff. Like I felt like in Stormblood, DPS had like a lot more interesting utility. And then they started shying away from that in Shadowbringer, so I was like kind of worried about that. But like now it seems like DPS are randomly getting new stuff, like Red Mage's thing and Reaper's thing. So I guess we'll see.
Yeah, and Walker, the thing with utility between melee DPS is why I said Arcane Crest needs a nerf is because you compare that ability to the other melee DPS abilities, because like Arcane Crest, I guess like the best comparison you could probably make is to like Shadeshift, right? Shadeshift is a 2-minute personal that reduces your damage taken by 20% of your maximum HP, or it gives you a shield based on like your 20% of your maximum HP. Compare that to Reaper, which is 30 seconds long and only 10%, plus gives a 500 potency AoE heal. Like that kind of imbalance is like pretty striking to me.
Okay.
So like the melee DPS aren't exactly balanced in terms of utility for defensives at least.
Dragoon has nothing.
Dragoon has, yeah, they have really strong bloodbath windows and they have 2 life surge now, but they don't have like any AoE or personal like
They're not gonna
defensives.
Need it. I mean, here's the thing: like, if the DPS doesn't need personal mitigations because the healers are just overbuffed.
Well,
yeah.
Go ahead.
The problem is if the healers aren't playing very well, then it's like, what are you gonna do?
Yeah. So they have no way to make up for bad players.
The problem is it's this game has always been like that. That's the problem. It's like it's a solution we want to find, but that's a core sort of how parties have interacted. Is a lot of the times and a lot of these groups, you're waiting for the healer to figure it out, and that's unfortunately how it is. So it would be nice if that burden was shifted a little bit, but I don't know.
I don't know. I don't think it ever will, because I don't think there's any way to figure out how to make that burden shift for the Holy Trinity, right?
So I'm saying they kind of like pigeonholed themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That being said, we've hit a whole bunch of broad general topics, and we have not talked. We've talked a little bit about White Mage and Astro, but we haven't really gone into them too much. Is there either one of those that you feel more interested to talk about than the other?
Well, Mage is probably the most interesting because it's probably the, I guess, most frustrating of the 3 or 4 healers.
All right, why is it
how
frustrating?
they designed it. I mean, could talk about Lilybell.
Just talk about it.
All right. Anybody want to go first?
I mean, I don't know what you're gonna say, but I kind of like it. So
I'll just say, like, it's frustrating because we have confirmed that the White Mage needs to take damage to proc Lilybell, which is really annoying. That means that you either have to do some shenanigans to get the White Mage to actually take damage when they shouldn't, or you only can use that to its full extent when there's repeated raid AoEs, which is extremely rare.
Exactly. Okay, yeah, so basically, Kyo pretty much nailed it. My issue with Lilybell is that it's a 15-second duration. I think it should be longer, either 20 to 30 seconds in duration. That way you can utilize it more fully. Like, mechanics that we have now, of course, all of this can change in Endwalker fight design, but like there's hardly any mechanics where you can actually fully utilize more than like maybe 3 hits in that 15-second duration. Like things like Shiva, you can only cover 2, maybe 3 if you time it perfectly. Titan only covers 2 sets of AoEs. Things like that. That makes it very hard to fully utilize and makes it less versatile than something like Macrocosmos or Panheima, which is applied also individually to each player. and doesn't require the white mage to get hit to actually utilize the healing effect. Second issue with Lilybell is that it has the potential to miss targets because it's a 20 yalm radius. I think that's ridiculous. I think it should be 30 yalms. 30 yalms technically makes it so where you can still miss it, but you'd have to. I don't even know how you would miss 30 yalm AoE.
Isn't an arena 25 yalm radius?
Yeah.
I was gonna say the radius isn't a big deal. Like a size is 15 yalms, so for comparison, it's a quarter or a third bigger than a size's range, which is already pretty huge.
Think of mechanics like Hello World or like Shiva Junction, where in Prague you're going to the very edge of the arena, and if Lilybell was to proc off yourself, you would not get that heal.
Well, with Shiva Junction, the only time you're like far enough, I feel, is like for the icicle proximity, but the knockback is going to trigger and probably. I mean, I don't know the timing, but I assume it would heal everyone because it would snap that one in the middle, so it would work, right?
Yeah, it would heal for the knockback, but you wouldn't get the heal after icicle if you timed it like that.
I guess that's true. I also feel like Lilybell's strength is like healing things that are like more difficult to heal like that. Like, I mean, healing up after the icicle is like not difficult, right? So
yeah. Well, I mean, my point is the fact that it has the possibility to miss is, I think, ridiculous when you compare it to other things, because Lilybell in itself is basically either a Panheima prototype or based off Panheima, right? So that's why, like, I think it just might as well make it like a guaranteed hit no matter where you are in the arena. That's why I think that's kind of ridiculous. My third issue with Lilybell is that, again, Kyo hit it on the head. It's based off the white mage, which means things like, for example, Macrocosmos. It can proc off of the tank auto attacks. It doesn't need, or you can pull tank auto attacks. It doesn't matter like who's getting hit. It would also work for things like Hello World, where people are taking damage at different intervals, versus something like white mage only getting hit by like something like defamation or something like that, or like maybe like a long stack. The thing is, you can't fix that no matter what you do to the skill. That's just the downside of the skill. Unless you could proc it yourself, which I think would be kind of cool if they gave you like a trigger button to like you can use each stack.
Like Earthly Star or whatever. Yeah,
you get like 5, like a 5-second cooldown where you can like proc each stack or something. That'd be kind of cool, honestly, but I don't see them doing that. Also, I don't like the fact that it halves the duration after the effect ends, because that just kind of feels like a shot in the foot.
What's a fail? It's like what do you call it?
Go ahead. Sorry.
No, I was just gonna say it's just a reward for at least doing it.
Well, it's not small, so it's 1,000 healing potency, which is a little more than Cure 3. If you do nothing with it, if it just times out, it's like an Earthly Star kind of, but bigger.
Except it's on a 3-minute cooldown.
It's a 3-minute cooldown, yeah.
That's basically where my issue stems from, the skill like itself. I actually wouldn't have as much of an issue with like the prior like complaints I have for this skill if it wasn't a 3-minute cooldown. But the fact that it's a 3-minute cooldown and has all these issues or concerns that could possibly, interrupt using the skill, I think is a pretty big issue for that.
I would be very sad if the majority use of Lilybell on cooldown in fights ends up being only 1 or 2 procs, maybe twice or 3 times a fight, and then that just times out and is like a basic raid heal. That's pretty disappointing. But
I think
Oryza,
I don't know. I kind of like it.
Positive thoughts. Yeah.
I feel like even if it only triggers 3 times, that's like that's 1200 potency heal, right? And like every heal is guaranteed to heal. I mean, like, you could talk about how people take damage at different intervals, but I think a lot of the time you just end up taking damage together. So like in some cases it's not as great, but I feel like in a lot of cases it will heal up, and it will always heal after you take damage, so it's not just going to be like raw overheal except for the end of duration. I think I think it's made the 3-minute cooldown, and I think the 15 seconds is definitely the worst part of it, because like you said, I don't think you're gonna get like all 5 unless you're like I don't even know, like Titan Tumults or something, I guess.
Even stuff like J-Waves or Oracles in Rage, you actually wouldn't even get the full effect from, which is kind of crazy.
Oracles in Rage is every 3 seconds, right? So you get all 5?
You would for sure get all of them.
When I was looking at it, you only got 4, but maybe if you timed it at like a specific thing.
Because of the Shockwave Pulsar is longer? Sure.
Yeah, but also this effect that... I mean, I guess we don't know how it procs when it's placed, but like there might be a wind-up period to it.
I hope there's not with only a 15-second duration.
Also, actually, one positive of Lilybell is that it's probably pet potency, which means it's not going to suffer from weakness or brink of death, which is, I think, a very big thing.
So I heard that pet potency is gone.
No, it's not. It's still there.
So, okay.
Yeah,
Well.
it's just nerfed, or sorry, buffed, I guess.
Okay.
It's like 95% instead of 70 or 67 or whatever.
It's like Star now.
Yeah, it's like stuff like Star, the Fairy, like Lilybell. It's pet potency probably, which means that's really strong. That's really good.
I think the other thing I was thinking about with White Mage is that it's basically, with Lilybell, is that it's like a heal on the move that's like remote if you do need it. Whereas like previously White Mage you could place Asylum, or you could spam Cure 3 and like that's about it.
Yeah.
Which obviously has range issues in terms of like who you target. Lilybell is like their only real remote healing tool that's like more versatile, I guess.
Speaking of versatility though, do you guys know if you can proc it before the 15 seconds are up? Like,
No.
can you force it?
I don't think so.
I didn't see in any of the footage that I was looking at whether or not you could. But if you could, that would be really nice. Like what if you've got a Lilybell out and the next damage is going to be fatal?
Mm-hmm.
It would be nice to be able to pop it early. But I don't know if you can.
I think it's actually a good point though. That was another pro that I listed when I was talking about White Mage. But what Ori said about being able to place it on the move, or basically it gives you the strength of Scholar where you're allowed to heal from like away from the party, right? Because you can place the Lilybell in the middle, and then for something like Thunder, Cycle of Life, or Cycle of Faith, where you have to spread out, like healers go to like the cardinal edges, and it's really hard to get like an AoE heal off there. Something like a Lilybell would be very, very good because it's going to proc after that little elemental break, which is actually another issue I have with the skill because it's prone to chip damage, which means like enrages like Final Omega, which are smaller hits followed by like a big hit, are going to be a lot of overheal.
Is it going to trigger off the dot from Burnish Glory?
We actually don't know about dot ticks affecting it.
I would assume not, but it would be kind of nice. I mean, at least it would. Like, we want more procs rather than less, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I would think they would make it so you can only proc it once a server tick, but
it says it has an internal cooldown of 1 second.
Oh yeah, okay.
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah, I think Cycle of Faith is a really good spot for it, actually.
Yeah. I think when you look at Lilybell, though, my biggest issue is that I don't think you can look at it from a single ability point of view, right? I feel like you have to kind of utilize White Mage's full toolkit, which, White Mage has the weakest off global healing toolkit out of the 3 healers, right? It has to fall back to its GCD heals more often than the other healers because it's just, you have a 90 second, you have a 45 second, and then now you have a 3 minute, right? And then you can include Temperance in that too if you want. It's, that's situational though. But you have these 3 core healing abilities, right, that actually do healing potency. And the fact that Asylum and is 90 seconds and the fact that Lilybell's 3 minutes, and then you look at something like Astrologian, who you can get 3 stars in the time that you can get, 1 Lilybell, right? And 3 stars is what? That's 2160 potency in 3 minutes. And you combine that with Collective, which is also 60. You combine that with Celestial, which is also 60. You combine that with Horoscope, which is also 60. And then if you want to add Macrocosmos to that list too, even though it's not technically an off GCD, it's DPS neutral and single target, and you can also proc it by yourself. I think there's some severe issues in the balancing of the toolkits, especially now that Thin Air is also nerfed, which means White Mage can't actually utilize its full GCD toolkit anymore without running into some severe MP issues, which I think also needs to be fixed.
I'm really glad you called that a nerf. I think you're the first I've heard, and yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I mean, the only pro to Thin Air is that you can space out raises and progression more often. However, it saves you 2 raises over the course of like a 60-second period. The thing is, you could also get 2 raises back to back in Thin Air already, so it's like technically MP neutral depending on the situation. Like, that's the only pro. Even then, that's a super stretch because like 2 deaths in like that kind of period is very rare. It happens. It's rare though.
It's unlikely you can consistently get 2 raises in a Thin Air. That's a really rare. That's like a real bad situation.
Mm-hmm.
Whereas like in a regular progress scenario, you're more likely to get with the new Thin Air both uses on a raise. But it's just so much more often that you're using thin air on things like Cure 3s or raw healing output, and you're just losing uses with the new one.
It basically means that white mages are going to never want to use thin air or never want to GCD heal outside of using their raptures and using thin air on like Cure 3 or Medica 2, because they're just going to go so much faster if they don't do that. I don't know how much we want to talk about MP values, because I'm pretty scared to bring that up, because usually, knowing how the community acts, they can go kind of wild.
What?
Huh?
They're going to get wild because we talk about MP values?
You know how people are.
Yeah,
those get changed, don't they? I feel like those get bounced.
Those are the easiest to change, yeah. But I think it's important to bring it up to make it like a concern, like noticeable, right?
Go ahead. I'm not going to be too upset. People get pissed off at me for just talking. So
I mean, I don't want to be I don't want to be responsible, dude. I was saying on stream the other day is like, the thing is like, my issue with I'm not going to bring it up.
Are you afraid to be like, delete it from the casual community going at you or something? Like, what do you?
No. It's just people overreact about the smallest things and they don't really think for themselves.
That's true.
Just why don't we just leave it at that? White Mage, even with proper thin air utilization, was running very low in optimized scenarios.
Yeah,
and it was hard to keep your MP value, like to keep your MP afloat. And nerfing thin air is going to make it scary because nothing else has changed. We still have the same mana costs on all of our healing abilities.
We're also actually getting more GCDs on their Presence of Mind now, and we're also getting more GCDs in the fight due to the 1.5 second glare change.
Yeah, so it's going to be interesting to see if Piety becomes mandatory and the more Piety in the healer case. Right now, it's like run as low as possible.
Mm-hmm.
But you may need to actually, like, White Mage was the only healer like that before. You had to run at least some Piety or you would go and the other healers before, at least in progression. But White Mage didn't have to, and now they probably have to think about it a little more.
That's my issue too. It's like White Mage's identity is that it has the strongest GCD healing toolkit, right? Nothing can compare to White Mage's GCDs. The only thing that can compare is like Neutral Sect, right? But that's limited to time because it's a 2-minute cooldown, and you can't spam aspected Helios like you could, Cure 3, because it suffers from the same effect as Sucker, right? You can't spam Sucker because the shields are just going to overwrite. It's the same situation. But the thing is, nerfing Thin Air gets rid of that identity in a sense, because now you can no longer afford to GCD heal as much as you could. You can't use you can't spam Cure 3 5 times, because if you do that, you're excuse my language, but you're fucked.
Oh god damn it! Now we gotta like censor that out of the show. God fucking damn it, Momo.
But we have unrelated to this subject. I just wanted to really quickly mention that it's worth noting. Regens got substantially buffed. So on the subject of healing throughput, White Mage in particular and Astro got huge buffs to their Medica 2 and Aspected Helios, assuming they stay the same. 300 potency increase for both over the whole duration, which is huge.
It's massive, yeah.
So there's the potential that we lean more on regens. Actually, there's across the board, a whole lot of regens are showing up that weren't there before. So I'm curious to see. Heart of Corundum is another one where it was just unexpected. 2 stacks of Aurora and Sheltron, yeah, and Holy Spirit, and things like that, where there's just these little trickle heals coming in that weren't there before. Yeah, Equilibrium getting regen as well. Yeah. And so I'm curious to see how that plays out in terms of how much burst healing or GCD healing a White Mage has to do anymore. Hopefully they rely on it less.
Yeah, I think the situation about relying on GCD heals, right, is just reactionary situations like progression, right? Like somebody, like your healer dies during, I don't know, like the end of Oracle, now you're just forced into spamming Cure 3. It's not really going to be doable anymore.
Yeah, true. You can still do a little bit with...
you can do a little bit, like 3.
Okay, so what about Astro? How are we feeling about Astro?
I actually wanted to say about White Mage, just because earlier, just like last thing, like it kind of relates to Astro too. Earlier, because we brought it up that White Mage has like the weakest OGCD toolkit, but it's like that's also how it is now. It's not like the respective roles of like what White Mage, Astro, and Scholar can do have like really changed that much. So I feel like even if White Mage only just gets Lilybell, I still think like its healing is still pretty strong. Like I still think like it's good, but
I think Lilybell's good. I didn't mean to come off as saying it was bad. I think it's actually
that's
really
the opposite
good.
of what you said. We just assumed
I mean,
you were telling us it's the worst thing that they ever put into the
No,
game.
no, I think it's good. It just needs quality of life adjustments if it wants to
I-
justify 3-minute cooldown.
Yeah, well, I just mean like White Mage as a whole, like despite not having like many off GCDs, is like still good because it's like doesn't really change much of how it is. And the thing about off GCDs now that it's like 1.5 second, like I was saying this the other day about like Benison because I think having 2 charges of Benison is like I look at that and I'm like, okay, like I don't really care about this. But it's like, well, now you have a 1.5 second GCD, you're just gonna be using everything. So like it literally doesn't matter how like bad Lilybell is, you're going to use it because it's free. And then like so it's better than nothing.
Actually, you bring up a point that I didn't mention, but White Mage actually gets the least amount of in terms of like its healing potential, it gets the least from the 1.5 second change because it actually has the least amount of off globals. Like things like Scholar and Sage, they got monumental value from that 1.5 second change because now you can use like all your fairy abilities, all your Aether Flow between those GCDs. White Mage, I mean, you can still only do a Size, Asylum, and Lilybell on top of like your Temperance, right? And then your single target skills, of course.
And Benisons, yeah.
Yeah, but like that's nothing compared to the other healers.
Yeah, White Mage mostly gets it for the like it's mostly the movement for them, right?
Yeah. But yeah, I was just saying like I don't think Lilybell's bad. I think it's potential. It just needs either quality of life adjustments or a lower cooldown to function as a 3-minute because like I think as a 3-minute cooldown, like a 15-second duration, I think is unacceptable.
Also, go ahead.
No, I'm pretty much finished.
Just to put it into numbers, since we mentioned how good current Thin Air is versus new Thin Air, normally if you pop Thin Air and do Cure 3s, you can get 5 of them in under the current Thin Air. And Cure 3 is 1500 MP, so that's a Thin Air value of 7500 MP out of nothing. I mean, it literally is out of thin air. So, converse to like compared to the new one, which is you're guaranteed only to get maximum 1500 MP value out of thin air, or 3000 every 2 minutes, which is the current cooldown, which is just substantially less. Unless you're using it on spaced out raises, we're not getting value on it. Not even close. Less than half as good as it was before.
So the interesting thing that I was thinking for thin air is that like I feel at least in Prague a lot of the time I'll just do like 1 Cure 3 at a random spot or like 1 Medica 2. Like Shell Crusher is a really good example. It's like I would always just like do a single Cure 3 and it's like I could thin air this, but like if I'm only doing 1 big heal, the new thin air is more value, right? There's a shorter cooldown and so used for 1 spell. So I was thinking like, yeah, it's like way worse for enrages, like 100%, because like, and that really sucks because I always like, you always plan out your thin air Cure 3, but I do think from like just random like within a fight, just when you're just gonna do a Medica 2 after a raid wide in Prague or something, like it is pretty valuable. But
well, I'm thinking stuff like, for example, the spot that I pop it in T and like Live in Liquid, for example, is usually thin air into Cure 3 before AoE hits, like top from just Protean waves and stuff, and then a Cascade hits and I do another Cure 3 under it. And it ends up getting like at least 3000, 4000 MP worth of value every time. And similarly later, actually the second use isn't that great. But anyway.
Something to keep in mind is that the charge only works for your first use. That thin air as a skill is practically only a 60-second cooldown after you use the first charge. Like it stockpiles every 2 minutes, but you're practically only getting two. You're losing 2 compared to now, right? So you're basically you used to get 3 extra. Now you're only getting 2 thin airs every 2 minutes.
Yeah, I mean it's still a 60-second cooldown. You just start off with 2, right?
Yeah.
So
it's more flexible. It's more flexible. It's more blind friendly. Like you don't know what's coming. But I think White Mage lost one of its big strengths in soft enrages or big AoE sections.
Okay. I think the biggest thing is just this could all easily be resolved by giving a size an MP buff on the regeneration effect. Make it like 10% instead of 5.
Okay. Are we good on White Mage, or you guys want?
Yeah, I mean it's fine.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Let's.
I think it's good.
I mean, White Mage is always good. They could make White Mage the shittiest healer in the game, and it would still be played by tons of people because it's just White Mage, right?
Temperance will always be overpowered, busted, super good. Nothing changes that.
Yep.
Yeah. So Astro, I mean, the big deal that everybody was talking about, and I don't know, I don't feel like it really changed too much. But you're not making it a shield and regen healer anymore. It's just a pure healer with regen that can also have shield stuff still. Do you feel like they changed up Astro a good bit?
Just diurnal, right?
Yeah, you're just stuck in diurnal.
Yeah. Like there was no real major changes for it.
Astro overall is a pretty fleshed out job. It's actually probably, I would say, the most fleshed out of all of them. The only issue with Astro is it's the card.
So fucking much.
They changed the cards a lot. Changed the cards like a whole lot.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's actually.
Go ahead.
Astro MP is very, very strong. It's actually very, 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 very strong. It's almost I'm pretty sure it's actually double. It's over double positive than the second next healer, which is crazy. But yeah, like Astrodyne is a really, really strong tool. It's going to be really fun for optimizers. It's going to be really strong in prog, because like in prog, you're pretty much just going to do 90-second intervals, because Astrodyne can function as both a 90-second and a 2-minute cooldown. You can also use it as a 60-second if you pool enough Astrodyne seals over like a certain time. Like for example, around like 6 minutes, you get like you'll have like two seals before going into like your 2-minute window with like triple cards, which is going to give you like pretty much a back-to-back, which is really nice.
Real quick, probably just for anybody watching that doesn't know what it does.
Oh yeah, sorry.
Astrodyne is pretty much no cooldown ability that Astro can use now. That's what uses their seals that they currently have. Right now they use their seals on divination, but now they can use if you get one seal and you pop it, or if you have one different seal, or just one type of seal in your bar, then you get a MP regeneration buff. If you have 2, you get a 10% speed buff, and you have 3, then you get also a 5% damage buff.
Which I guess can correlate to my issue with Astrodyne currently, is that it's going to feel really bad because you're going to be optimizing raid DPS over your Astrodyne windows. You're not going to go for that 5%. You're going to play the proper card on the proper target, which is really weird, which is why like some people are always like, it's nice that Astro Legion has RNG back its rotation. The issue isn't that it has RNG. The issue is that you're playing improperly against what the skill was intended to be for, right? Because like a 5% buff on yourself is anywhere from like 100 to like 150 potency on yourself, right? That's like nothing compared to like a proper card target on like, let's say like a samurai going into their burst, right? Or let's say like a samurai does like 10k potency in the burst window. That's 500 potency just from that card alone.
And so you can't just arcana it onto them now to not affect your seals. You have to play it and affect your seals.
That's why like it's really weird that they're not giving us some kind of, it also goes because also to mention they remove sleeve draw, which means you lose your guaranteed card. That's really awkward because like that was like the pretty much only saving grace of the seal system IMO.
And the redraw change is really bad too.
Yeah, the redraw gives you less chance of actually getting that 5% and proper cards. So I think either the one or two things that need to change are either make clarifying redraw give you a seal you don't already have. So if you have like a solar, you're not going to get a solar if you draw or redraw, or make it to where you get 3 charges back. That way you can optimize both Astrodyne and your raid DPS. Those are like the 2 changes I propose. I think if it stays the same, it's going to feel really awkward because like again you're playing counterintuitive to the ability's nature, which I don't think should be a thing.
I think you'll see a lot of Astros if they don't make any changes, just accepting that the 2 stack is fine. And that's the expected.
Yeah.
If they have to 1 stack, it's sad, but the 2 Astrodynes.
I think somebody mapped it out.
The same seal. That's very unlucky.
Yeah. Somebody mapped it out. It's like a 98.5% chance to get 2 seal. So like it's pretty high. But
wait, like at least 2 seals or
at least 2 seals.
And with redraws, yeah.
Yeah. The thing with 2 is like what people seem to not understand about Astrologian is every redraw you have to do is also DPS loss potentially, because like especially like when it comes to burst windows, right? Every GCD that you miss on a specific target is potency that you're losing. That's more niche though.
Less because it's really just subbing it out for a different GCD, just a lower potency one. But you are still losing. So.
Yeah, it's like imagine like you miss Higginbana because you had to redraw like 100 times. And you get like a gym poo because of it. It's like like that kind of stuff is pretty big.
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of people complain about Minor Arcana. I do think it's pretty cringe from like an optimization perspective, but I don't think it's that bad overall. Yeah.
I think with its 1 minute cooldown and the fact like the lady cards, like the heal's like pretty good, so I feel that like you're gonna find a usage for it if you do draw it, so it's not like the worst thing in the world. But yeah, I could like definitely optimization's like really frustrating if you don't need to heal at all in that 1 minute. I think in Prague like it's gonna be useful in some way. And
oh yeah, lady is so good in Prague. I think that's definitely gonna be underutilized.
The Lord is it's the same as a Malefic, so it's like if you substitute a GCD heal out for a lady, it's literally the same thing as though you just drew a Lord.
Yeah, that's true.
With better mana too. So
something to keep in mind about ladies, that's also a 20 Yalm AoE, which Astrologian has none of. So that's pretty strong.
Okay. So and this is where I mean they're also getting Macrocosmos, which everyone's freaking out about, right?
Yeah.
And so some of these abilities, if we feel like maybe they're a little bit weaker, they balance out with other abilities they're getting, right?
Astrologian's toolkit is the strongest of the healers. It always has been since like 4.3, and it probably always will be at this point.
So
let's briefly just. I'm going to describe what.
Yeah, go ahead. Yeah, you can fit. Yeah, you can. Yeah.
250 potency AOE and 20 Yalm radius around them, which is big, with fall off, 50% fall off. And it grants a buff to players that accumulates damage over 15 seconds. And like basically the damage you take, it remembers it. And at the end of the duration, which is 15 seconds later, it will heal equal to the amount that you took over that duration. So effectively a full restore of whatever you took.
Mm-hmm. So I mean,
potentially a benediction, potentially on every party member.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean that does sound ridiculous, and that's every 2 minutes, right?
Yeah.
How often are you going to be taking twice your health bar in 15 seconds?
Not very often, but it's just potentially.
The thing with Macrocosmos that I feel like most people don't really take into account, like they're just seeing it as like a face value. Oh my god, this is going to heal from so much potency. The thing with Macrocosmos is you have to keep in mind you have to be at a low HP after that hit to get full value of whatever getting healed, because it's just going to be overheal if you don't. Like let's say like I guess a good example is like let's say you're going into like Tumults and Titan, right? It hits you like 3-4 times, big AoEs followed by like a Voice of the Land, and then you're like 70% HP after that AoE because like you healed or whatever. That's gonna get like, let's say it does like, I don't know, the heal's worth like 70% HP. That's gonna be like 40% overheal, just because like you overhealed that for safety or whatever. It's gonna be a lot harder than something like Panheima or Lilybell to utilize as like a skill, and it's gonna be one of those skills where it's going to probably make or break how good an Astro player you are and how good your team is.
How good your co-healer is.
Co-healer,
Cosmos, right? So
we already have a problem with Star Overheal as is, so this is just another layer of very easy to overheal Astro. The co-healer of the Astro overhealing their own Astro's timed heal.
Yeah. But I think for mechanics overall, I think it's very versatile, right? The fact that it doesn't proc off like something like Lilybell, right? Like where it procs off the White Mage taking damage means you can use it for something as niche as like auto attacks on for the tanks, right? Because like you're gonna get like in today's values, right? You're gonna get like, let's say, probably 4 or 5 auto attacks, depending on like if it's like a long string of autos, and that's gonna be what? Let's like each auto is like 30k. Like if you get hit 5 times, that's gonna be a 75k heal on the tank. That's pretty considerable.
Yeah.
The only problem is that it's not going to be flexed very much because it is also a Malefic in potency, so it's probably going to be used roughly on cooldown, if not on cooldown.
Yeah, it's DPS neutral.
Yeah.
Okay. So, I guess like one of the questions, if we're gonna do a regen and shield meta, right? That we assume, okay, now that's going to how they're going to be doing it. They're going to find some way not to do double shields. You're thinking Astro and Scholar?
They both work.
Yeah,
Like-
both, yeah. But you think they would be the two strongest of the healers working together?
I think the strongest healer is the one that does the most damage, and then that's it. I don't think their healing kits matter that much.
Okay.
Probably, yeah. In this current age, healing kit doesn't necessarily make too much of a difference.
All right. Because it feels like, and this is just my outside perspective of this conversation and everything that I've seen before, that a lot of newer players are going to be excited about the flashiness of Sage. So you're going to have them play Sage, and then you have a lot of newer players who just want the pure healer, and they're like, oh, White Mage, that's the healer I knew from all the Final Fantasies, I'm going to play that. So those are going to be the ones that people who just want to play healer are going to play for that introduction, getting used to healers, and then all the like really hardcore players are going to say, hey, we got to play Astro, and we got to play Sage, because technically they are the strongest of the healers. Or is that not true?
Actually, something to bring up real quick about Astro Scholar is that Scholar's co-healer is Astrologion's like the probably best co-healer for Scholar, because you still do lose damage for using like something like ED, right? Especially like if you have to use like dissipation EDs, you're losing pretty much 100 potency every time you use ED. So having like an Astrologian who has the highest free healing potential out of like the core healers right now, probably the best co-healing partner for Scholar. Something like White Mage, for example, its cooldowns are way too far apart, like Asylum and Lilybell. They're just too long of a cooldown to properly utilize for like damage. I think a good example actually is like Oracle of Darkness, where you have like a large hit of damage every 60 seconds. White Mage, the thing with White Mage and Scholar is that they both lose damage when relying on like their, I guess, second line of defense for healing, right? Like your second line of defense for healing for White Mage now is like Rapture, right? You lose potency for Rapture. It's actually more of a DPS loss now than before because your glare got increased and they didn't compensate for Misery. I don't know why they didn't do that. But yeah, like it's probably the best co-healing partner for Scholar.
Okay.
Funny that, like, when I was like new to the game, I played Astro as my first healer because I thought Time Mage was cool. I don't know if I would just say like people just you're gonna pick like casual players and pick White Mage, and people who want to like pick what's good would pick. I think it's like basically arbitrary. I don't think it matters at all. Like what people pick, I think people just pick anything.
Well, I mean, anything's gonna work. Anything's gonna work no matter what. I mean, that's the solution, right? No matter what two healers you put together, unless if they do some weird stuff to where shield and double shield just isn't gonna work, and double pure heal is not gonna work either. I mean, anything will work. But I do think that we are going to fall into a meta where people are going to expect, I'm looking for one shield healer and I'm going to look for one region healer.
Yeah.
Because they're putting it in Party Finder. It's an option in Party Finder, right? They're already trying to at least artificially create that separation.
I mean, people already do that now, right?
I mean, I guess so. Astro could usually cut, as long as you have two different healers, it doesn't matter right now.
Healers.
Ealers.
Ealers. Where are the eels?
Oh, the eels. Sorry.
One thing they bring up with Astral Legend that I don't think we mentioned yet is that it has two sets of mitigation sources versus White Mage, which gives it an advantage in different scenarios. And same example, Oracle of Darkness, you can see you pretty much every single pulsar, shockwave pulsar, which is extremely strong. Whereas like White Mage, Temperance is very, very strong, except they only have one mitigation source, which is Temperance, and depending on like what kind of damage it is, it can lose value, because like Temperance it excels at like multi-hit damage, things like Shiva Junction, Titan Junction, Lion's another good one, things like that hits multiple times. Whereas like Astrologian mitigation it's better at more frequent hits, and it's better at heavier hits that are less frequent. So you get more value. It's kind of like Paladin versus the other tanks too, right? Like when you see a Paladin, you look at Passage and Veil. You don't just look at Veil. It's the same way, right? Like you can Veil and you can Passage in between those hits. It's kind of the same thing where you can like see you and neutral in between those hits, depending on like what kind of mechanic it is. So I think they both have like their pros and cons in that regard.
Okay.
Astro is, in my opinion, more flexible. So
yeah,
that's what I always would defer. That's even true now. Is defer towards the Astro for the flexibility.
Okay. So we went over all the heals kind of in detail. Before we go into like some more broad conversations, was there anything about any particular jobs that you feel like we walked past that we should probably make sure we hit real quick?
I actually didn't talk about why Mage Raptures.
Okay.
One really strong thing about Rapture is that they're very versatile, and because they're pretty much just used for healing now, I guess like you got to compare it to Lightspeed, right? Like in some situations, you'll use Lightspeed as a healing tool for instant cast movement. Things like Blackfire or like 10 Strike, things like that in UCOB, or like Shiva Junction. You know, you'll maybe pop Lightspeed there to heal while doing the mechanics. Titan too. Rapture can kind of fill the same niche, except you get less per GCD, right? So like in Lightspeed, you get at least seven GCDs every Lightspeed, every 90 seconds, right? White Mage, you get 3 instant cast GCDs every 90 seconds. The difference is that you can space them out more evenly. So I think that can be a pro for White Mage, depending on the situation as well.
Okay. Anything else?
How do you guys feel about Sage generating gauge out of combat?
I think it's required, or else they'd be bad.
You gotta wait a minute every before pulling.
I mean, they get an ability that
3, right?
They get an ability that gives them a gauge too, right? Like
every 90 seconds. Yeah, well, I don't know if they spawn. No, when Yoshi P switched jobs to Sage, like on the live letter, he started with none. I don't know if you die, you would come back with 3 or not. But
if they don't give you 3 as soon as you zone into an instance, that's weird.
Not taking it for proc.
Yeah,
because we're not waiting for that every pull.
Yeah. The thing with our 90-second is that it's pretty much recitation, right? It's their equivalent to recitation. They get it around the same level, and it kind of functions the same because like recitation saves like an Aetherflow stack, whereas like whatever their 90 is called gives them an Adder's Goal stack. So it kind of functions the same way. Yeah, don't they also generate during death? I heard that as well.
Wait, what? Really?
Yeah, I heard they generate during death.
I have a video of it somewhere. I could probably pull it up.
That's weird.
Yeah, but to be fair though, can you imagine if they didn't? Like they'd be so bad for prog. Like imagine dying and you're just screwed.
Like
Scholar has that problem already. Like you die, you don't have Aetherflow.
Yeah, I think it's different though, because the thing with Scholar is that you get 3 immediately as soon as your next Aetherflow comes around. Whereas like, I mean, I guess it's hit or miss depending on the situation. Yeah.
It does
really
look
strong
like I start with 3 after dying.
Oh, nice. Wait, so when you're dead, are you regenning them?
When I'm dead, all right, hold on. Let's see, dead. It is I do see it regenerate. Like it is generating when I die.
Do you lose the ones you currently have when you die, or do you keep them?
I don't think I ever died with stacks. Let me see.
Oh.
I got 2 stacks right here. Yep. You lose them.
Oh, okay.
So let me do this. I'm gonna throw it on the screen just so if you guys want to see it at all.
So you lose your current stacks, but you regenerate from 0 once you die. Is that what you're saying?
That's what it looks like. Yeah.
So 20 seconds after you die, you get your
that's
first
pretty
stack.
balanced, I guess, compared to Aetherflow. Yeah, I thought you kept your stacks, but if you're only regenerating after you die, I mean, it's kind of. I feel like that's actually kind of required. Yeah, because like if they didn't do that, like Aetherflow would just strictly be better, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't have like a dissipation equivalent to like potentially get 3 as well if you really need it.
So as long as they clear all of your current ones, I think that's pretty balanced. I thought you kept them, which sounds crazy.
Yeah, hold on. Because I'm gonna go through a whole bunch of stuff and it's gonna go like all goofy. I have to actually go and do this. Yeah, I showed all my videos on there, so you know the names of all of my videos on there. Luckily, nothing else. The names of my videos. Let's see. This is shit. I don't know if it. That's Chrome. Video capture doesn't capture Windows Media Player.
Speaking of the out of combat type stuff, I'm really happy about Div, but I'm still disappointed they didn't like. You still have to draw and wait 30 seconds if you want the card, right? If you want to use Astrodyne in the opener too.
Yeah.
They didn't do anything about that.
Thankfully, though, it's not as impactful, right? Because ideally in Prog, anyways, you're going to delay your Astrodyne. You're not going to use it in the opener unless you really don't need the MP.
And if you draw during the black screen of a respawn, it's pretty close to being up when we pull. Like just waiting on the barrier or like the barrier to drop again.
By the way, I can't show you guys Drive D because it has some stuff that you know, I can't show you the D, which is full of the D.
Okay.
Just letting you know. But no, yeah, I almost got this pulled up. I think
I'm
I have to do it
watching.
a different way to do this. We go here. Then it is this drive. Then it's this folder. This folder. And I think I call this one Hunt Sage. And let's see if that throws it on the screen. Right here. I think it does. Transition. Yeah, there we go. There we go. Let me make sure I turn down the video, like get rid of that, mute that. Make it not take over the whole thing. And then let's go to here. This is when here I'll put some music on there so you can hear it a little bit. But if we go and look at this, and I'm going to just crop it a little bit so you don't have to see all this junk. But if we go to here, and this is where I died. So, are you watching, Momo?
Yeah, I'm watching.
There's going to be a slight delay. So if you look at my meter right now, I'm about to die.
Yep.
And so let me hit play on it. I got 2
Actually,
stacks right
this...
now. Then I die,
Yeah.
then I lose stacks.
Okay, let's watch. Yeah, you lose your stacks, but it starts to. So okay, that's pretty balanced, yeah.
But then when you res, and you come back, actually no.
You res into a city state though, right?
Yeah, res
Oh no,
into a
so
city.
it doesn't actually give us to you still. So actually,
Well,
okay.
Yeah, resing into a city state's like a normal res, right? Or it doesn't reset any recooldowns or anything.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. You're right. I don't know if I think there might be a point where I did get a res. Let's see. I think Rich was playing Summoner. What was he playing? No, he was playing Machinist. So I don't think there was any of these where I actually got a res. I think I ran back each time. This is just, by the way, this is just a point where we ran into this A rank with 4 people for like 20-30 minutes and kept dying over and over again trying to kill it.
Watching this footage, I actually forgot to mention about Sage. Sage has the like the easiest like DPS rotation out of all the healers too. Like the least to think about when it comes to their optimization, which is a kind of a pro for them because less thinking means more thinking about other things like mechanics and stuff and like progression.
Yeah. Okay. I'll go ahead and take the video off, but I think that gives you the answers you need, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, other thing I noticed about Sage was that it has, I guess, like we touched on the mobile sucker shields, which is really nice.
Mm-hmm.
But if you don't need a sucker, it's like really immobile, right? Like White Mage has lilies, there's light speed, Rune 2, like it's a loss, but you can still do something. Like I don't think Sage can do anything except spam their dot, which is like
They got the Scholar weakness I was hoping Scholar wouldn't get, right? Because I was really afraid they were going to remove Rune 2, which is actually, again, Scholar's biggest strength again. Rune 2 is very, 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 very strong in progression when like you're having to move on demand or, like just want to see like a mechanic, you don't actually have to like drop GCDs. It's like the most mobile instant cast ability out of all the healers. Sage, again, like you said, doesn't really have that outside very like niche specific parts of their rotation. So yeah.
And actually, I don't think Sage can double weave with any. There's like that melee skill. I think that one's instant. But other than that, like even their Eucrasia skills, like their dot, you can only single weave with those. So like double weaving, like I don't know.
Yeah, no, it's definitely a weakness for sure.
Yeah. Oh yeah, Chasing may have Toxicon, but then you have to add those someone to get it, right? So.
Well, I mean, yeah, chat's saying like all these abilities, but the thing is, it's not as on demand as other abilities like Scholar has.
Yeah, I mean, you've got Haima and Panheima, but
yeah,
yeah.
Like
Yeah,
it's not about it being instant cast, more so like the thing is, like, it's like saying Scholar is instant cast without Rune too. Like, yeah, sure, you can spam Biolysis, but like that's not going to do as much as like a Rune 2 would, especially because Biolysis doesn't do damage.
Oh wait, I'm done. Those are
Or I guess a better example is like spamming Dia as a Y mage right now, right? Like if you have to move a lot, it's like that similar situation.
Okay.
So it's not the same.
You can double weave with Phlegma, right? That's a spell.
Yeah, that's the melee range one, I think.
Oh, okay.
I think that's the only one.
So I guess another question on top of all this stuff. Is there anything the community is freaking out about that they shouldn't be freaking out about? That feels kind of silly.
See a few people freaking out about Scholar still. I don't know why. See a few people freaking out. This is just in terms of healers, right?
Yeah, in terms of healers. Yeah, we're still on the healers show. Momo, when you come back for the tank show later, we'll jump on to
I think people are overvaluing Microcosmos too much.
I agree.
Sure. I think it's really strong. I think it's I think it's stronger than Lilybelt, but just because it's more versatile. But I think it's one of those tools that's going to be very, very hard to fully utilize as a healing ability. And it's going to be very rare to get that full value.
Okay.
I just see so much of Scholar is dead, and it's just not true. It's absolutely not true.
I mean, honestly, I think cool factor Scholar loses. It's not nearly as cool as Sage.
Hasn't it always lost? I don't know. Sorry.
No, like I said, like it looks cooler, but like Sage, it's the most brain dead healer in terms of damage rotation.
Oh, you have to read all those words and those abilities, dude. You know how fucking hard it is to read those damn names of abilities.
Yeah, I mean, it's
why Scholar's already brain dead when it comes to damage too.
Well,
so we're talking about healers still.
I guess I meant to say optimization, right? Like optimizing your damage as a healer, like it has the easiest function, easiest role out of all of them. That's what I meant. Not like actually doing. Yeah, they're all pretty easy. Like the 1.5 second cast time just makes it, all of them fairly easy.
If they ever do actually delete energy drain, which I know they really want to, then Scholar will be brain dead too.
Scholar would that would just be free. You could just do nothing.
They tried to in Stormblood. They almost did.
We'll take a quick look at the gear sets if you guys want to. Hold on. Because some people were saying that the gear sets were really good for one versus the other.
One thing we didn't talk about. Numa is a 25 Yalm radius AoE. That is very strong.
It requires a target, right?
No, actually, I don't think it does.
Really?
I don't think it does.
This is a laser skill, right?
Yeah. It might. I don't think it does. It might.
It's what was it? It's a heal and it's a mid, right?
Yeah, she's like a laser in front of them.
I feel like, I mean, yeah. There's I guess you can compare all the jobs, like 2 minute mid skills. Pretty strong.
The thing with Numa though, like why I think it's not if that requires a target, that's really bad. Because that means their 10% mitigation is locked behind uptime.
It's gonna be so hard to aim if you don't have to require a target. It's gonna be just in front of you, which means
actually that's a good point. That seems kind of weird.
What's the width of the rectangle? Do we know?
It didn't look very wide from the animations. Pretty narrow.
It says it has a Yalm of 25 and a radius of 25.
Yeah.
So it's
thanks. Yeah.
Yeah, that's all it says. It doesn't give us the Yalm radius of the. Maybe it's 25 Yalms too. This is a straight line though. I think straight lines are indicated as well. I actually know Flood of Shadow is actually indicated as a radius, even though it's a straight line. So maybe it is actually 25, which doesn't look like it.
Apex.
Yeah.
That
would be massive.
Yeah.
That would pretty much be guaranteed to hit everyone.
Sage and AoE situations though, like if that fight came out, if T came out when Sage was here, man, that would be disgusting.
Apex Arrow says it's a 25 Yalm radius, which it definitely is not. So
okay. Or I meant range. Sorry,
it's for both. Apex Arrow is 25 is for both.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, it's probably just a small line then. But the heal, the actual heal radius is 25 realms because it comes from around you. And you can see that in the job trailer.
I will say, I did want to say on the subject of things people are freaking out about. There's one thing people are freaking out about that is justified, about Scholar especially. That's that our kit still does not interact well with itself. They didn't change that. You still get locked out of your abilities constantly while you're playing Scholar, and it's awful.
I don't know why they didn't buff Dissipation to affect all healing still. It's the biggest complaint I have with Dissipation outside of just, like you said, locking you out of your fairy.
Let me eat Serif. I don't care if it's like a mistake.
Yeah.
Do it anyway.
Yeah, you can ghost Whispering Dawn and stuff with Serif too. Still.
Yeah, you can still ghost things. Still lock yourself out of stuff. Serif locks you out of Dissipate. Dissipate locks you out of Serif. Or in all fairy abilities. Like, it just doesn't feel good.
Yeah.
It's always going to be a turnoff to a lot of people.
It's so weird because to Dissipate under Serif, you have to manually desummon Serif and then resummon the fairy and then Dissipate, which is like 3 extra steps for no reason whatsoever.
Yeah, the GCD too, like to summon the fairy. Awful.
Which is another thing we can talk about too if you want. And why are fairies still on the GCD?
Literally whatever you want. It's your show.
why are the fairies still on the GCD?
Summon fairy.
Yeah, like after Summoner got changed, I was like, well,
Summoner stuff's all in the GCD now. So,
well, like yeah, but like currently, like you can just summon it between GCDs. It's,
yeah.
I feel like it's be a nice quality of life.
Just give it like a potency. You summon fairy and does broil potency. Actually, that wouldn't work because you need a target. Hey, whatever.
Be AoE around you.
I'm still like, if that Numa ability is like locked to uptime, that is going to be so cringe. I knowing how they do skills, I doubt it does work like that. Because Square Enix, they play at their own game. They know how to balance, healers and stuff like that.
Thank you for saying that on this show. I really appreciate that because I got shit.
I think people, I think people underestimate like Square Enix's like balancing team, like how they like handle situations. Like they do play their own game. We could criticize how fast they implement changes. I think that's fine, but to say they don't like play their own game, I think that's incorrect.
Yeah. That will stick with me for a while, and I'm going to make sure every single show no one says Yoshida hasn't played his game, because
I think it's very obvious because the balance in this game is so good compared to other games.
I mean, we could talk about that. Have you played any other MMOs recently with healing?
I played solo for a bit.
Heard solo was good for healing.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. You spent almost all of your time doing like GCD healing and having to like pay attention to I guess just like what damage people were taking. I mean, I was obviously very unfamiliar with both the jobs and the toolkits, but and the fights, but I thought it was more enjoyable than hitting holy for like 12 minutes to do an expert dungeon like that. So
yeah, okay. None of you guys have experience with WoW healing, right?
No.
I played it like very casually, but not in raids or anything like that.
Yeah.
I know that it's very active, that it's a lot of healing, but not particularly like a lot of it's about throughput. So
I thought it was just whack-a-mole when I played back in the day, dude. Like you'd have the interface and you have all the names up and you're like, it's low here, press, it's low here, press, it's low here, press. And that's all I remember doing as a healer back in WoW in the day. I'm sure it's much different now. Maybe it's not, I don't know. But it was definitely whack-a-mole healing. And I think the only reason I bring that up is because we're going to have such a large influx of healers from WoW playing this game going into Endwalker. And so their expectations of what healing is like in this game is going to be different than what they did in WoW.
Yeah.
And so I'm
see a lot of Disc Priest play Sage and then realize it's not Disc Priest.
Yeah, it's not. I think people are or just over exaggerating the fact that you do DPS while healing. It's a neat gimmick,
you
but
really
it's
don't,
not changing anything.
Yeah, it's embrace. Like it's a single target heal that's very low in potency that may add up in certain situations, but You know, both the fairy and cardio, they have their benefits, they have their pros and cons. So
The downside is you actually have to DPS to get the benefit, though.
Yeah, I don't
So-
know. Do healing spells proc it? I don't remember.
No,
I don't
it's,
think they do.
do they?
I don't think so.
I don't think so.
Pneuma
No.
procs it, but that's
Numa, yeah.
Yeah, so
Okay.
during things like downtime, you're getting 0 value out of that.
Mhm.
Versus
Mhm.
Scholar would still be healing, but that's few and far between these days. We don't get a whole lot of downtime aside from like transitions.
Yeah, I think Sage is like going to be well, even it's not just downtime too, it's just like heavy movement windows, right? Like if places where you can't roll your GCD potentially might screw you out of things.
Mm-hmm.
Or like
Yeah.
anything like I guess Oracle Darkness is pretty good because like Embrace will heal during like the stun durations of like basic and intermediate, even if small windows could maybe change things. I mean, the issue with Embrace is just that it's not consistent, which you can't rely on it.
Yeah, it's also a very low potency, so ultimately it's usually not going to make the difference.
Mhm. Well, now it's
Yes.
actually the same as Cardio.
Yeah.
They heal for the same value pretty much.
I mean, so they're both like probably not going to be enough to make a difference.
Yeah.
You're still
Yeah,
going to have
I
to
think-
GCD or OGCD.
yeah, the teams just heal themselves, and it's gonna
Well,
matter.
Embrace
So.
Embrace now is stronger than it is today by a lot actually. It does like 5k today with our health pools, and in the new patch it does like 3k with like 1/3 smaller HP. So like it got buffed by like what 20% ish.
Oh, that's really good, actually.
Yeah, it's almost like Heaven's Word Embrace. That's,
Jeez.
Even more on my point of regens being
yeah.
more prevalent in Endwalker.
Mm-hmm. Huh. Man, I don't know. I'm. It's going to be pretty interesting seeing how all the dynamic works out with this new expansion, because this is just a weird situation for us. The community is so much more mixed with people from other MMOs and everything else coming in that we're going to see all these like fresh opinions that. Okay, maybe they're not fresh opinions. Maybe they're the same opinions that people have had for years, but they're experiencing it for the first time in Final Fantasy XIV, and they haven't developed that, I don't know, getting used to how it is situation.
Wait,
right?
what opinion are you insinuating?
DPS while healing? I don't know.
Like
That's a
DPS
big one.
healers?
Yeah.
I think we're pretty much out of that.
We are. People who've been playing
No,
for a
like I
while,
think
but-
Final Fantasy 14 is kind of shifting because like we have people who it's so widespread now. It's almost the same as like Warrior never pulling the boss back in like early Stormblood and like Heaven's Ward. Like you always have like Paladins or whatever pull the boss, but like as soon as like we start shifting into like the mid Stormblood, late Stormblood era, Warriors would just always pull the boss no matter who was in the party, right? I think it's kind of like that in the sense where we're finally entering a stage where the opinions are shifting towards more DPS focus as healers because it's becoming more widespread knowledge. You have more people being outspoken about it. So yeah, I think it's just like a different age of healing, I guess.
So we don't think it's going to be an issue, like with a whole bunch of new players coming in and healing.
Well-
I mean, it's always going to be an issue because that's not
Mhm.
what you think of when you think I'm going to play healer.
Mhm.
They don't think of him as green DPS, at least not initially. You sort of ease into that, especially coming from WoW. That's like the biggest difference from the way that any of the classes play is the healer change, and that's always going to be hard for people to adjust to. But you can make it natural through the kits, and you're trying to.
Still
think
depends
one
on
thing-
what part of the player base you're talking about, right? Because like, I mean, I do 2d5. I still do extra roulette, and I get so many 0 DPS healers, right? But like on rating, I don't
Really?
think so. Yeah.
I
But,
haven't gotten a 0 DPS healer in ages. It's been a while.
Okay.
I
gotten
haven't
some
seen any in a
good
while
ones.
either.
Yeah.
Yeah, I've gotten quite a few, but
Jeez.
the like I don't know, like you rate, it's like I mean, I still see them from time to time. There'll be like a not like 0, but like I don't know, you have like an Ashos doing like 400 DPS, and you're like, all right, but it's I will say, if like as far as like rating goes and like PFing goes, it's fairly pretty rare.
I think
Okay.
It'd be nice if they just tied gauge to it or something on all the healers. Just
Yeah.
just a little bit of gauge. That'll incentivize you. But I don't know.
Okay.
I think something to bring up too, because we didn't really talk about it, but DPS checks moving forward in Savage fights, I wonder how it's going to shift the meta, because they don't it's obvious that they don't calculate healer damage as much as healers can do for like early week 1. They probably like undervalue it quite a bit, which makes me worried because DPSing a healer is going to be a lot more accessible, right? Because of the 1.5 cash change on both White Mage Scholar, it's going to be much easier to do big damage during week 1 progression. So I'm curious how it's going to affect the DPS checks moving forward.
I mean, the healer DPS should be a lot more predictable then, right? There's not going to be as big of a gap between.
Like you think that.
If
right?
they hit the bud to do the DPS, though, right? I mean, that's the other thing. They have to think to do it. Go ahead.
I heard, I don't know how true this is, but like, 'cause I don't really, again, I haven't really looked at the potencies, but I heard something about healer potencies like being like the relative gain being lower than like every like tanks and DPS. So like, it like people were theorizing that they're trying to push healer DPS like down relative to like the total party contribution. So even if like it's easier, it's like it would be less impactful, right?
Yeah, but it'd still be impactful in some way, no matter like how much they do, right? Like let's say for Titan week 1, right? They assume that both healers would do like 4K DPS, right? When in reality, like a good healer duo could do like anywhere from like 5 to 6K each, which would give you anywhere from like a 2 to 4K leniency. That would still exist, just not to the as impactful as you said. Like let's say maybe they nerf, because they did. I think they did nerf healing potencies in terms of like everybody else, because they balanced out everybody's physical versus magical potencies and stuff like that. Unless they didn't, which I mean, my bad, misinformation. But like we don't really know because we haven't really tested it, and I haven't seen any information about it. But if they did do something like that, then yeah, the difference will be healer DPS will be less than stuff like tanks now. That's only if they affected the change of caster versus physical potency.
Which also is another buff too, like cards and div and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Actually, that's really wait, you're right. That's actually really worrying. I didn't even think about that if they did do that. Wait, yeah, that actually kind of like nerfs Sage and Limeage a bit then, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So explain that why it nerfs.
Well, if they evened out physical and like magical potencies, right? Because like right now a glare is like worth a Holy Spirit on Paladin, but a Holy Spirit on Paladin is like 500, like what 25 potency under Holy Spirit or under Rec. But they do like the same amount of damage, even though glare is only like 300 potency. So if they like even that out to where like glare is still doing like that potency, but it's like a little bit weaker because like right now I think the main formula is because the physical damage has less weapon damage than casters, because casters don't auto attack, so their weapon damage is higher, which I think is like the main course of that, like main issue with that. If they balance that out, then the potencies per the melee will be technically a little bit stronger than as they are now compared to the healers. That's assuming they kind of balance that kind of formula out. That makes any sense.
Okay. I mean, not really. I don't heal enough for any of this.
Well, it's just
basically
basic formula stuff.
It's like if personal DPS gets cut for healers, then Astro and Scholar, who have lower personal DPS, get affected less. That's basically what it comes down to.
Okay.
It hurts.
Assuming that's the case.
Less raid buff.
So,
healers more.
What are we thinking about DPS ranking from the healers? Like, which healers are going to do the most DPS? Any clue? No?
I feel like Astro Scholar are going to be king, but
we have the numbers formulated on a spreadsheet. I'm not going to like say anything about that just because those things can change easily. And
let's put the disclaimer: these numbers can change and things can change. All right, now let's do the ranking.
Currently, right now, yeah, it's White Mage, and then Sage, obviously, and then you Scholar and Astro. Scholar and Astro with raid DPS contribution is probably higher than Sage White Mage, but it's so hard to tell just because we don't really like know how much damage we're contributing to raid buffs.
Okay. All right. Well,
in terms of MP regeneration, if you want to go about that, it goes Astro, Scholar, Sage, White Mage.
Disclaimer: things can change. Okay, yeah.
Things can change, yeah.
Speaking of that, Scholar MP is like no longer an energy drain, right? It's like 20% from Aether Flow instead of 10. And the energy drain no longer gives MP at all. Currently, it gives 5%. So it's like you basically get 2 energy drains worth of mana every minute. So that was kind of interesting.
Okay.
MP economy is going to be interesting. That's the thing we probably know the least about. I mean, aside from DPS only, MP economy, but
Yeah, currently the only healers that are MP positive are Asher and Scholar right now. They need to change Sage and White Mage MP.
At what party is that?
Minimum, I'm pretty sure.
wow, they're positive at minimum MP or
I think so.
minimum
I'd have to
IS?
check the spreadsheet.
That's really crazy.
Generates ridiculous amounts of MP.
Astrologian generates. Yeah, they generate. Well, the thing is, right? They lose sleeve draw and they lose like the 8%, but they're generating like 3,000 MP off Astrodyne every use of it, which just completely makes up a 3-minute cooldown. So you're losing like 800 MP from the sleeve draw every 3 minutes, but you're gaining 3,000 every 90/120, which is like going to be really big in prog because you're pretty much just going to use Astrodyne on cooldown. You're not really going to like optimize cards too much when learning a fight.
Okay.
And then Y Mage, just again, thin air. Really bad, not giving a size 10% MP or anything like that to compensate. Just really screwed Y Mage. On top of the getting extra GCDs with Glare, and then the presence change, giving them more GCDs in the fight as well.
It's going to be tough times for White Mage MP unless they change something.
Yeah, I mean, the thing is, like, disclaimer again, these things are so easily changeable. It's like, I'm really hesitant about talking stuff like this because, like, things people always, like, early Stormblood White Mage before the job even came out, you know, Shadowbringers White Mage people complained about before job even came out. It's like, no, STFU, please, like, just let it come out. Like, we'll beta test the job in the first couple weeks, and then, you know, by Savage they'll change it.
Momo, I read the tooltip. Scholar's dead.
It's not that big a deal. Seriously.
Okay. No, yeah, of course, not a big deal. I mean, we know Scholar's dead, and we know that, you know.
Oh my god.
You heard it here first. Endorsed by
Heard it
Momo.
here, guys. I'm saying Scholar's dead. Cool factor. That's the only thing I'm 100% certain on. Like, it's just fucking can't even compare to how cool Sage looks, in my opinion.
Sage does look kind of cool.
It looks really cool. If you don't like lasers, you're gonna have to turn off the action effects, 100%. But it is really cool. And I think Astro's the second coolest, then maybe White Mage, then maybe Scholar for cool factor.
I'm just jazzed we finally got a healer, man. It's been since Heaven's Word. It's been so long.
Yeah, it's been a long time coming. You know, when we had this show before, right, where back in like a previous MogTalk, we talked about how, like, you know, if they added another healer, I think, or you're on that show too, where, you know, if we added another healer, it would just be like pretty much the same as, like, you would just do 2 pure, 2 shield healer, and, you know, lo and behold, that's what happened. It's
literally the thing that was said at the, I think, end of Heaven's Word, and from my own mouth, I said this. All right, is that don't worry about balance. Fuck it. I said this about tanks too, but that turned out to be wrong. Have 2 shield healers, have 2 regen healers, just be done with it. Don't try to balance this weird this trio, you know. And they spent a whole expansion trying to do it, and they just gave up. But I mean,
pretty balanced right now, aren't they?
I mean, they are, but it's well, Astro's still really strong in binaural, isn't it? It's like ridiculous.
Broken, yeah.
Yeah. But when we were talking about the Astro's been the trouble balance job since it came out, really. But when we were talking about tanks, you know, I also said, oh, have 2 off tanks, 2 main tanks, but that doesn't need to happen at all. Tanks are fucking balanced the way they are. Although you're not supposed to main tank or pull with a paladin, right? Because the spirits within.
Oh, yeah, spirits within.
Oh yeah.
But that's changed too. So
yeah, they're gonna be better. I don't know if they're gonna be. Probably, it's really hard to tell.
Mm-hmm.
Like Warrior's new toolkit is.
It's so crazy.
It's really insane.
Mm-hmm.
Like I feel like they got like the best defensives out of all the tanks this expansion or next expansion.
So too.
Yeah.
What do you guys think about the Holy Spirit healing yourself? Because I feel like it's actually, I mean, obviously it heals a heal, but I don't think it's like that amazing.
It's good because not when it procs Veil, so that's good.
It helps with the pillow fight. I mean, that's really what it is, right?
What do we know how Holy Spirit works? Does it? Can you do? I guess Frosty, you play Paladin, right? In tour.
Yeah.
So can you? So how does this work, right? Do you do 4 Holy Spirits Confiteor or then Confiteor combo, or can you only do the Confiteor combo while under Rec? I didn't actually check that.
Confiteor.
I mean, the Confiteor, as soon as you hit Confiteor, Rec is done. Yeah. So you do your normal combo with that. So whatever it is, you just do your normal combo. When that ends, then you do your extra combo right afterwards.
Yeah. Okay. So you get pretty much 4 Holy Spirits, maybe 3 if you cut it out every rec window. I mean, that's when you think about it, right? You have that every 60 seconds. Even 3 would be 1200 potency, and that's the equivalent of Equilibrium. So I think it's going to be pretty impactful.
It's very interesting because it's different than the other tanks, where the other tanks are getting their regen effect basically constantly. The Paladins is going to be like in this tiny window. So I don't know if that's going to have any actual effect on how healing tanks plays out, but it's interesting.
I mean, I have this... God, you know what? I didn't even think about this, but I'm sure my video audio completely... Well, you know what? I think it's low enough. The video audio is not so bad. I did go back and check to make sure Divine Veil propped from Holy Spirit, because that was something that I needed to make sure of.
I heard it did.
Yeah, it does.
Yeah, I heard it does too.
Yeah, because that's what I was testing out.
That means you can't pop Veil early, right? Or or use the ability early and then pop it later. Like if your Holy Spirit's there, you just kind of
you have to plan it.
Yeah, it does lower the function. Yeah,
right.
It does kind of suck because it's not like Shake It Off, or like Shake It Off is the ability you kind of use. It's like Divine Veil kind of got more clunky just because it has a heal attached to it now, which you sometimes may be able to utilize, sometimes not, just because of the nature of the skill. Because like a lot of the times when you use Veil, you actually pop it like either 30 seconds in advance almost sometimes when you're actually using it, just so you get it on cooldown faster. So it's gonna be definitely interesting to utilize it.
As long as you don't do a Holy Spirit, I mean that's the thing. You just have to time it. Your DPS combo, you have to time it around that, or
it's just clunky, right?
I don't feel like it's clunky, dude. I feel like it's perfectly fine, because if you know you're going to be hitting Holy Spirits, just use it right before. I mean, yeah, you're going to have to not get it this really early window, but it's just all timing again. I don't think it's really changing anything.
Well, the issue is if you, I'm too tired to think of numbers, but basically, you can't pop it too early, and there are cases where you would pop it early, and then it would come off cooldown early, so you could just use it again in an earlier thing. Even though it's a 2-minute cooldown, but it's effectively almost a 1 minute between shields, because Veil itself has a 30-second cooldown, then the shield has a 30-second cooldown. But you can't really play around with that as much anymore because Holy Spirit just pop it.
Yeah, that's what because it's a good.
Yeah, go ahead.
An example is like Ultima, right? In Ultima, as soon as during the transition, if you do Divine Veil as soon as the Ultima ends and proc it right as it's about to fall off, the shields will last after the opening tank purge, and then come up again after Predation, so you can use it for the Tumults plus Shriek. If you do Veil before right before the tank purge, it doesn't come up for that spot. So that's an example where you can utilize that tech, except it's during downtime, so it won't matter. But in situations like that is what Ori I think is trying to.
you could still do that with the way it's functioning, right? You wouldn't
if it lines up.
Yeah. Well, what if your Holy Spirit came up 10 seconds after you wanted to use Veil?
I mean, yeah, there's that. So there's going to be a little bit of funkiness with that, but I think gaining the benefit of being able to pop it yourself, being a party finder tank for me, it's huge. But I guess in groups and stuff where you have kind of more planning around that stuff, it feel a little bit more goofy. But you'll find your timing either way.
Actually, the thing is, this only really affects Gal or Astro. Actually, you know what? I'm really curious. What if there's Cardia? Cardia would probably proc Veil, right?
Ability, right? So it wouldn't.
No, I mean, if it works the same as Embrace, I mean, it probably would, because it's based off your spell.
Yeah, the whole thing about Veil is that I never really felt like proccing Veil was that much of a problem. I'm not really into I'm not really a speed killer, so
it's only an issue with speed kills.
Yeah, and I also, because I play mostly White Mage, where it's when you use Rapture, it just pops it. So it's I actually would rather it not get popped by Holy Spirit, but
It does. Yeah.
The issue that I run into all the time is that I use it with Party Finder groups, and there's no way to pop it. I have no control. I literally have no control from
true.
healer. What?
I mean, technically, you have something you can use. It's just you don't want to.
Why? Yeah, no, I wouldn't want to use it. You know, it would mess up. You mess up. I mean, that would kind of throw off your paladin rotation a little bit too, right? Because I mean, you'd have to use it right before you start one of your combos, and then you're one GC. Yeah, fuck that.
My understanding is there's a little bit of overcap on the regular rotation, right? You little bit go overcap before the next rec. I don't know if it's enough for a clemency. I thought it was.
Speaking of clemency, I mean,
we're talking so much about paladin right now.
Yeah, we should probably stop.
We're talking about healing, though. It's the healing aspect of paladin.
Healing aspect of paladin. But go ahead, Momo. Go ahead.
No, I was gonna say that's a tank thing. It's not healing, so
okay. We'll have a tank show. We could do a tank discussion at some point too. I probably need to do a melee discussion. We only got like a month, so I only have a few
30-something days
before the extension.
Like
you can skip a phase range discussion at least.
I feel like it's going to be so much harder to keep track of. Like, I have just more incentive in Endwalker to just leave the party at like 60% HP as long as possible, because there's just so many more regions and heals that are just chilling around now than before. I don't know. The days of topping the raid in between hits is it's been gone for a while, but it's certainly worse now.
Well,
just let the regions do their work.
I want to ask this question real quick, because I mean we should start wrapping up and everything, and I do want to have so many shows, and one of them has to be dedicated to PvP after November 5th, because we got to do that show, right? Because finally, after like 3 years, I'm getting something that 10 other people and me care about. I'm just kidding. There's a good community, guys. I just want to meme. Anyways, that being said, we'll try to get whatever kind of conversations out there. But in regards to healers, you're in. It feels, this whole conversation kind of feels like you're in this semi-excited, cautious limbo. Are you optimistic in any way going into Endwalker about healers?
If I was a casual player, I would be very excited.
I'm very excited, just to let you know.
Yeah. I think it's really good for casual players. I think this expansion is going to be really good for casual players.
Okay. I'm excited. I think the fight designs have gotten better and better and better as the game has gone on. And good fight design, I mean, I feel like they were really trying new things in Shadowbringers. And as long as they take what they learned, by the end, by promise, I feel like a lot of the healing was really satisfying. Pretty much E9, 10, 11, and 12 all had very satisfying, from a healer perspective, checks. Maybe not 10, but even 10 had its moments. Like Umbral Orbs, even when it was done correctly, had some interesting interactions. So I'm hopeful that Pandemonium will have a lot of very interesting healing dynamics to it. And with increased kits, who knows? Maybe they'll actually make it pretty challenging.
I had to guess, by the way, I do think Pandemonium is going to be harder than what we experienced in our previous raids. Not the hardest, but like it's going to be a step up from Shadowbringers. I really do think that.
We'll see.
But
not the first tier.
Eden's Gate isn't exactly a high bar, so
we've gotten a large influx. We've got a large influx of players recently. A lot of those players, the ones that are more endgame focused, made their way through Promise, have finished it by now, and are looking to the next one to be a step up. So I'm hoping that means that this, even though it's the first tier of it, or the first tier of an expansion, that they'll make it a step up like that.
The thing though is that Yoshipi's confirmed in the interview that he purposely designs the first raid tier so it's more accessible for the new players coming into the expansion. So I think that's probably going to be the same level as Eden's Gate.
I mean,
or like Deltascape.
Here's the thing: what is a smart decision for Square Enix to do right now?
Make it accessible.
Is it to make it accessible, or to make it a little bit challenging for these people coming from these other MMOs that are looking for a challenge in the game? I mean, I don't know.
I mean, they have the promise of Ultimate around the corner, so
yeah.
People, I don't know if people really quit the game that much because it's not hard enough, but people definitely don't raid because they think it's too.
But the thing with accessibility too is that accessibility can equal fun, right? like Eden's Gate to me was probably the most fun raid tier to farm because the fights weren't super like grueling to do in Party Finder. Like for example, Light Rampant pretty much killed all of like Eden's verse PF, right? The fights overall in Eden's verse are just super punishing compared to Eden's Gate and Eden's Promise. So many insta wipe mechanics if one person messes up. So like that kind of stuff, like difficulty doesn't always equal fun, and like it may be fun for progression, but progression is such a small portion of this game, right? Like it lasts for like 1, 2, 3 weeks depending on like what kind of well, for like what kind of skill level you are. Yeah, I mean for me obviously.
Yeah.
But like most groups will prog the first couple weeks of the expansion.
Yeah.
And then you have like the outliers who like either start late or are just like super casual who just like do it for fun.
Well, this time people probably gonna start late.
I mean, or PF, or people
Yeah.
who use exclusively PF, which it takes a little longer, but
Yeah.
Like me.
yeah, maybe like 4 or 5 weeks in some cases, but it shouldn't be too bad.
Yeah, accessibility just it doesn't mean it's gonna be bad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Specifically,
I just,
go ahead.
oh no, I was gonna like kind of move on. So
I was saying coming back to the reason we started this topic was just I was hoping it was more difficult from the exclusively healers perspective, exclusively because we have more tools than ever. So I'm just hoping that they focus on that at least a little bit. I feel like it can be done in a way that doesn't mean you're just going to wipe. If the healer doesn't meet the check, but I don't know, we'll see.
It's a thing too, that if they make a raid tier too difficult, then it just becomes again Eden's verse all over again, right? So like we don't really want that kind of situation.
I mean, I guess.
I
don't think Eden's verse is healthy for the community.
I thought it was great, but then again, like I don't know.
I don't think I met a single person who cleared Shiva through Party Finder who actually enjoyed the fight.
I mean, I did. I mean, it was painful, and it felt like I was stabbing myself the entire time. But in the end, it felt pretty good, and I liked the fight, and I felt like it was a great fight.
You might be an outlier,
suffering. But it felt like good suffering. I don't know if that makes sense, but it felt like good suffering.
Okay, well, the majority opinion I see is that they did not have as fun on Shiva than they did in previous raid tiers or fights.
Okay.
I feel like that's just a Shiva thing.
Yeah. Well, Shiva itself isn't exactly an outlier. I mean, it's just a punishing fight. If anything, it was pretty simple mechanically. It had some of the easier mechanics that we've seen. It's just that they were really punishing if you messed them up.
people also chose really stupid strats, I think.
I think Light's Rampant did more harm than good as a mechanic. It was a good mechanic, but I feel like it did a little more harm than good. And it was a big stopping point for a lot of people that were trying to get through.
I also think knockback mirrors was fucking shit, and I hated that because you had to like time that within a second. You had to time your knockback, and that's
a PF strat. Yeah, I don't know why they. Yeah. Ori and I can agree. Yeah, that they should have just did it normally. I don't know why they decided to do.
The normal was so comfy. There was no timing to it.
Yeah. It wasn't easy cheesy though. So I don't know.
Easy,
Oryza, you wanted to
constantly wipe there because people were not good at it. But as far as like the original topic of like optimism for next expansion, I mean like. I guess like just talking about like this, like I feel pretty cynical, I guess. I mean I said at the very beginning, like that I'm a cynic, because like all I can think about, like I want healing to be harder and more interesting, but all I can think about is how all the role skills in Stormblood had a ton of CC skills on them, and then they literally didn't do anything. Like they were completely useless. Like Melee had the skill called Crutch, which was only in Asuna for binds and slows. And it's like, why do we have... And it's like, there was like a race, which was for dots. It was like, I remember when we saw those skills, people were like, oh, they're bringing back CC in raids. Why else would they give you these skills? That was like the prevalent opinion. And then they didn't. And the skills were just useless. And it's like, I don't like I'm not gonna say it's definitely gonna be this way, but I worry that like we're just gonna get new healing tools. It's like specifically when I say this, I like what comes to mind is the tank stuff. Like we're gonna get all these new tank mitts, and then busters are just gonna do the same amount of damage, and it's gonna be like mitigating them is like gonna be even more of an afterthought than it already is. And it's like that like worries me, I guess. I mean, the thing is, like, with the new expansion, like, of course, I say all that, but of course, like, I'm excited for it. Like, new raids, new jobs, like, no matter what, like, I'm gonna play it. Like, I pre-ordered, I took time off work. Like, obviously, I'm really excited for that kind of stuff. But I think like, I can't just like ignore the things that to me are potentially problematic.
I mean, I do think that Square Enix has improved in their overall raid development ability throughout. Like, it's been a journey, man. It's been a journey since they started. We went from Coils to, what was it, the Savage back then, to Alexander, then down that slope, and then we went through Stormblood, and then I feel like in my opinion, I feel like Shadowbringer raids were good. I felt like they did a good job with them. You all might have a different opinion on that, but I do feel like they did a pretty decent job. And I feel like they're only going to kind of repeat that process and go forward now that they're starting to find their groove.
I think overall they're better than Stormblood, yeah. I think each expansion has their own, at least modern expansion, like Stormblood onwards. Stormblood had its good fights, Stormblood had its bad fights, Eden has its good fights, Eden has its bad fights.
Yeah. I mean, they got rid of that repeat mechanic, right? Where you're like, let's just do the same mechanics for the last 50% of the fight, basically. So,
I mean, I preferred Omega over Eden's Promise, even though it repeated.
Really?
Yeah,
I disagree.
I think Imminent plus Final Omega was much better than Eden's Promise plus Oracle.
I did not like Oracle that much, but I don't know if I agree with you regardless.
With Oracle is my issue with Oracle is that it's 2 8-minute fights back to back, which significantly cuts down the difficulty of the execution part of Oracle. Figuring out is a different story, like solving the mechanics are a different story, but when it comes to like the execution part, it like definitely dampers the difficulty level of it.
Well, we're going to get into a whole raid conversation, so I feel like we should back up and go ahead and start closing this conversation down. Is there anything else in regards to healers that you all want to throw out there in the last few minutes of the show? I feel like we said that 30 minutes ago, and then we
talked
went on
about a lot.
Yeah. So I think we did pretty good today. But I just want to give you a chance, unless if like, Momo interrupted Oryza, and Oryza's like, motherfucker, I had this really good point. I was ready to put it, and then like he lost it for 30 minutes. No? Okay.
No, I just say stuff.
Okay, good. With that being said, we'll go ahead and wrap up today's show then. And then there's a lot to talk about before Endwalker comes out. We have barely a month, again, barely a little bit over a month before we can get access to it, and get into all this stuff, and it's going to be crazy. This is, for me personally, I don't know for you all, but for me personally, I haven't been this excited for an expansion before. Like, out of all the other expansions, for some reason this one just hits more.
I think I'm the most excited for the story, if I'm completely honest.
It does look really interesting, yeah.
I know I'm a raider and I'm into the hardcore scene, but it's the same writer, and they were amazing in Shadowbringers, and I'm super hyped for the story going into Endwalker.
Yeah. I'm hyped. And Oryza and Momo, they're not. But that's okay.
No, I am. I'm excited for the story, actually.
Yeah, you have actually a full month to absorb all the story stuff before you get into Savage, and you don't even care about the story. Doesn't even matter at that point, right? Because you're just skipping cutscenes you already saw in normal. So, and you don't have to. There's not a world first. I'm not doing a world first for normal, so it's.
To be clear, most of the raiders who are interested in the story, they skip all the cutscenes, but then we go back on an alt and we watch all the cutscenes.
Fair.
So that's very standard for most of the people I know.
Yeah.
I think more hardcore raiders are interested in story than people might think.
Yeah.
In my group, I think every person reads the story, and like no one's even like, I'm the only person who doesn't, I think, in my group. So
I think half my group does too.
Even while you guys are like racing, or are you talking about?
No. Don't turn their racing.
Okay, I was about to say.
That's a really, really bad thing about rushing is like, even if you do rush the story and skip cutscenes, it does spoil it still a tiny bit, because like which is coming up based on like what you fight in like trials and like dungeons and stuff, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, but you don't also like. There's not really a huge incentive to rush the expansion if you are interested in the story versus like a world race thing, right?
Yeah.
Uh, like like I said, my group's really interested in the story. Like 6 of the 8 of us are like not rushing; they're just taking it at their own pace.
Well, I mean, and that's the great thing for this is that the main story ends right here, right? You don't get a patch to end this main story. You get a patch to start the next story. So, like, you can take your time to finish up what they're planning to finish up with this main storyline.
Oh, really? They're doing it like that?
Yeah. It's kind of like Heaven's Word. Like the main arc ended with just 3.0. Then you had the post. It's gonna be similar.
Yeah, but this is like clear cut. Like the main story, 100% done. Like they're not going to have a patch that adds on to that story or anything else. The next patch is the next story. So I feel like this is a really rough like cut of like, hey, experience an RPG, have fun in an RPG, then we'll get into all the serious rating shit later.
Yeah, I heard it was going to be like a full-fledged JRPG length.
Yeah, that would make sense. Okay, anyways, fuck. All right, guys, this has been a great show.
Wait. What about the questions? We didn't get any viewer questions?
No, I don't do viewer questions anymore, dude.
Wait, really?
Not really. Yeah, because it's just
wait, why not?
Because it's so much work, dude. Like I have to go in here and look at the color.
You had a spreadsheet.
All right. You know what? Let's just have them ask completely within chat, and then if you guys see a question in chat that you want to answer, then we'll answer it. But if you don't see a question in chat you want to answer, then we'll just say screw it, you know? But yeah, no, I really haven't done viewer questions because it just never fits in anymore. It's like we spend so much time talking, and it just never really works out. What's your favorite DPS for Endwalker? This is a healer show.
Momo, where's your cat?
Reaper's looking pretty good. Just saying.
Reaper looks really cool, like the animation wise, like it looks really good.
I don't hate my viewers, you stupid idiots.
Dang!
I'm just kidding. I love you. Please don't leave me. Do you think Scholar's Toolkit can compete with Sage's potency on... no, we're not doing that one.
I saw that.
Wait, where's the spreadsheet?
I don't have a... I'm just reading the chat. We're just reading chat, dude.
Okay.
How would you feel if SE changed redraw to have infinite uses while a card is drawn instead of one use per draw?
No. That becomes a new player trap. And they'll just shuffle forever and lose a whole bunch for free. No.
Okay.
Can't do that.
Any media tour questions are stupid, so they're not stupid. I'm sorry. It only refers to me, and I care about our guests right now. So we're gonna talk about that stuff. And so with new tank changes, are healers even more redundant in normal dungeons?
Actually, I think so one thing I think would be really interesting, right? If they don't increase like outgoing like healing in this game, I think it's very possible that we see like a solo heal meta potentially.
It depends on the raid mechanics.
Like,
raid mechanics are targeting.
Of course,
yeah.
Like in Prague, like you sort of do. In Prague, you would definitely do. Nah, I mean, it's a big if, but I think it's not impossible. Because the thing is, they design so many mechanics nowadays that are based around 2 healers. So, like something like E9S would be like.
Yeah.
Are you guys ignoring family gatherings to raid when the new tier comes out?
Kill beforehand.
Probably gonna clear before Christmas.
Yeah,
Comes out the 21st, right? That's 4 whole days.
Yeah, you got plenty of time.
Yeah.
Oh my god, this is a long one. I'm gonna try it. Do you feel that the resource management for the 4 healers when it comes to MP regeneration will scare newbies away from playing it? And how would you tell SE to fix the current poor MP resources?
Do new players think about mana?
I don't think it's going to scare anybody away. It's really only in like super optimized scenarios that it's a problem.
Yeah.
If you're sitting on GCD, for example, and just not casting, you won't have any MP issues.
Yeah.
I know a lot of newer players who don't even push Lucid until they're out of MP, and they get by just fine.
Yeah, the MP issues are only really relevant to raiding. Even then, it's still like Keo said. Some healers don't even constantly spin their GCD or roll their GCD.
So it's not the end of the world if you lose out on like 5 DPS GCDs in any given content. That's whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, with the improvements to regions and the core damage spells and the possibility of
Sage, I think.
What?
Sage typo.
Is that maybe Sage, Scholar playing nicely? Does it send any red flags for you guys about possible steady raid attrition damage mechanics coming in, shift and rages, etc.?
Soft and rages, I think he means.
Soft. Okay. Yeah. Like, I'm sorry, I was having a little bit of a hard time. But yeah, any answers to that question?
I refer back to what I said about the CC skills. I don't think you can look at existing toolkits and draw any conclusions about future raid design.
Okay.
I get the feeling that their like class design people don't really talk to their raid design people, and I wish they did because it would be nice. But
no, you're wrong, Keo. They all communicate properly. Don't fucking get me in trouble. All right.
The thing is, like, it says send any red flags, but it's just like it was the same thing as like, Diurnal Astral White Mage. That's a viable comp, and in some cases, it's usually more optimal too. It'd be like the same thing, but flip for shield healers. Like the thing with Scholar, okay, the advantage Scholar Sage have actually over White Mage and Astro is that Scholar and Sage have lots of pure healing in their toolkits, whereas White Mage and Astro don't have as much shield potential as like Scholar and Sage do.
Okay. It looks like that's all the questions. I don't think there's any other questions. I don't see it. Oh, well, did we talk about Minor? We talked about Minor Arcana, right?
Yeah.
Essentially, like, they do the same potency if you get to save a healing GCD with Lady, so the RGs, whatever.
Okay.
Like, it's going to suck at some points, but, like, I don't really care too much about it.
Oh, what's your opinions on Sage and T, I guess? That's a possibility, isn't that a thing?
Well, so we get Panheima, which is pretty useful in a lot of spots in T. I don't think any of the other healers get their AoE healing skill at 80.
I think the only skill you don't have is Numa. I think the other ones are just like upgrades to existing skills. Oh, and Braces, but I don't think it cares about that.
Yeah, Sage is gonna do. Actually, it's really funny because Scholar kind of got nerfed a little bit in T after the expansion because Broil, the Art of War stays the same, or actually it might be a little bit weaker, but Broil's like 255 potency at level 80 now. It is extremely nerfed compared to today, and nothing else changed, so it's just a straight loss in potency.
Yeah, I think you bring Sage preferably to T now.
Yeah.
Which is interesting, because that will also help out White Mage losing Cure 3 spam during the Soften Rage as well with Panheima. So
and typically new jobs are like ridiculously strong when under sync or under sync down. So say just if Gunbreaker is anything to go by, it's gonna do like ridiculous damage too.
Okay. Which healer has the highest skill cap in your opinion?
Astro.
I think
Astro,
yeah. It's kind of not. It's actually kind of. That's the weird thing. I feel like Astro is. It's going to be a lot harder than the other three healers, which is kind of concerning.
The optimization to get the right card on the right person every time and just having to know people's burst windows. I mean, it's less complicated now because burst windows are more normalized. But still, there's just such a high ceiling to get the most out of your Astro play. And
now you're also adding the fact of optimizing your Lords and Earthly Star under raid buffs, because Earthly Star is 320 potency now. It becomes this weird issue where it just requires way more thinking than like the other healers, because like it probably goes Astro, Scholar equals White Mage and then Sage, I would say, in terms of skill cap. And Scholar equals White Mage just depends on the fight, because like if there's a fight like E11, right, where there's like a bunch of downtime to where like you want to maximize as much lilies during downtime as possible, White Mage is going to increase in difficulty. But if it's just like a straight up time fight, White Mage probably be pretty easy.
Do you think Sage's heals being instacast GCDs will pose a problem for burst healing, where you need to delay a heal for soften rages or J waves, etc.?
No. You just hold your GCD.
Okay.
If you really have.
Yeah.
It
Okay.
is easier if it's instant.
That's what you do today, anyways.
Yeah, if you spam GCDs in relativity, Quietus is like 3 seconds apart each one. So if you spam it, you actually like get ahead. So I usually just like wait.
Same with
between each one.
J-Waves, yeah.
Hmm.
Actually, that's like the biggest cause for wipes in J-Waves is healers who don't time their heals properly. They just get smacked by the next one because like either those shields don't apply because the galvanized effect doesn't get removed, or they just overheal.
Yeah, getting one heal in between each one and not accidentally like healing just before the hit, causing you to get 2 hits in a row without healing between. That's just easier to not make that mistake on Sage, which is just makes it better. It makes it easier.
Yeah, Sage is really user friendly. I think it's almost comparable to Y-Mage in terms of how like accessible it is to new players. Like it looks really overwhelming from like a tooltip perspective, but like the abilities are very straightforward. Like there's no thinking. Like Scholar and Astra have a lot of thinking to their abilities because Astra requires like very precise timing, and Scholar requires you to know when to use each ability for every situation. Sage isn't necessarily the same, so I think it's a pro to Sage as well.
Okay. We'll ask this one last question. I'm assuming I already know the answer to it, but I'm going to ask anyways. Do all 3 of you plan on progging on what you consider your main healer, or does it really just depend on what the Savage Patch Day says for the meta?
We're gonna be ready with 3 different healers, and I'm gonna react to the patch and play them enough ahead of time that
3 different healers.
Yes.
Not 4?
No.
You normally don't need to because your co-healer has a preference.
Yeah. Usually, well, at least in my group and how it's always been is we have one locked in each, and then we flex the others.
Yeah,
So-
exactly.
Yeah.
So, like for example, I'm locked into Scholar if it's viable, and Aura would be locked into Astro if it's viable, and then we flex the other 2.
Okay. There you go.
Yeah.
All right,
Yeah.
Momo, are you satisfied
Yeah.
with the
I'm excited.
questions? Jeez.
Oh, yeah.
I feel like an asshole, dude. Making me look bad in front of my viewers.
Why you gotta hate your viewers? I'm just here to,
Hey. I don't hate them. I was just not going to say anything and just go on, and just like they wouldn't be upset because they didn't know anything bad happened, and then you brought that up. And now I gotta freaking do this probably every single show now.
Yay.
Well, that being said, you guys have been fantastic. It really means a lot to have this. It is something that is the one thing I think I wanted to talk about and a lot of the community wanted to talk about was healers, because this is a really big deal, getting an extra healer. It is. We haven't had an extra healer in a while, and I know it feels like maybe we're not really getting an extra healer. We're just getting an extra flavor, right? And it may be just like the same thing like you guys were saying, that it's kind of 1-for-1 with Scholar in some ways, but it is something new to play around with, and it's not just the same 3 healers, because that would have sucked going into this expansion with just the same 3 healers, right?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I wouldn't mind it, but some
I'm
people.
used to it.
That's how I felt in Shadowbringers.
Yeah, like I was actually when people said that they were sad that like we didn't get a healer in Shadowbringers, I was actually kind of glad because like I knew that it wouldn't really be that impactful.
Jesus.
I'm glad. Well, no, I didn't mean like that. Why are you laughing? I'm just saying like I'm glad.
So like I don't give a fuck like the whole time.
No. I'm saying like because of the way they were designing at the time, I don't think it was the right time for them to add a healer. But now that they kind of have an idea of what they actually want, I think it's good that they delayed it.
Okay. Well, that being said, let's go ahead and do our final little round here where we do the shout outs and we do where people can find you and everything else. And we'll wrap up the show. And we're going to start with you again, Oryza.
Why?
Because you're the top. You're 12
me.
o'clock, right?
Oh
I got to
my
go
God.
around, dude. Always clockwise. Never counterclockwise, which is stupid. Counterclockwise is the worst. But Oryza, come on, where people...
What am I supposed to say?
Just shout outs and where
Hi?
people can find you, dude.
Oh.
You've done this.
Yeah, you can find me on, I have Twitter, I stream on Twitch, I do YouTube videos, like some short guides. I also have a TikTok, although I haven't used it a lot recently. And yeah, all of them are just Oryza Mercury on all of them. So yeah, and shoutouts. I don't know. I don't.
You care about
shout out.
anyone.
Thanks, Frosty, for having me on.
Oh, you're welcome. I do want to say, Oryza, what do you put on your TikTok? Because like I didn't think you'd have it. Like, is it like funny?
Yeah,
videos?
so well, sometimes I make shit posts, but usually it's like these 30-second to 1 minute guides that explain some like fundamental rudimentary aspects of the game. So like what stack markers are, like different types of proximity damage, stuff like that.
Is that something that TikTok? There's like is there a Final Fantasy 14 TikTok community?
No, that's the thing. Not really.
Okay.
So Or's making that bag.
Yeah, he's in there. He's the only one. He's making use of it. Holy shit. All right. Well, thank you again, Oryza. Please follow him if you aren't already, because he does stream, and you will be streaming Prague, I think, as well. Oryza, is that right?
Oh yeah, if you're interested in like world race fast progression, I stream Prague, so my team will be streaming this upcoming Savage tier.
Yeah, and Oryza also shouted out his team because they're amazing, and he's so glad he could be with them. Oh, okay. Momo, do you want to go now? Where can people find you in shoutouts?
Yeah, you can find me at FFXIV Momo on Twitch, Twitter, and YouTube. It's the same thing for all of them. Shout out to Phase Temperance and The Balance, of course, bringing helpful guides and community discussions.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think that's pretty much it.
All right.
I have a shout out. Shout out to Momo's cat.
Yeah, shout out your cat.
It's not even in my room right now.
Why? So no one's ever been obsessed with your cat before this show?
It's because my cat always comes in when I'm streaming, I think, and they always like say, "Show cat," and I said no.
Okay.
Yeah, they always ask for a cat cam, so I'm pretty sure that's it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Did you set up a cat cam?
No.
Why not?
They don't deserve it.
Oh shit! Now you're disrespecting them, dude.
Yeah, no, I'm allowed to. It's my chat.
Okay, fair. But please follow Momo. You're gonna also stream your Prague when it comes up around Christmas, right?
Yeah, we also stream speed kills and stuff too.
Yeah. Okay. And Kyo.
I'd like to second the shout out to Phase Temperance. They're amazing, and I love what they did for the community. I love the challenges and the hell modes and the resources they have. Big shout out, they're great. Also, obviously, my raid group. I love all of them. It's amazing that we're still together this long. You can't find me on social media. I don't exist. But I do have a Twitter, _Kionu_, I think it is.
Mm-hmm.
And Radiance Discord, I post occasionally. That's pretty much it.
Okay.
And and big shout outs to my co-healer, Ara, the best healer in the world.
There you go. Yeah, no, he's not on this show though, right? It's Oryza, Momo, and Kyo are the best ones in the world. Because that's how people judge it, right? Because as soon as I'm done with this show, people are gonna be like, "Why didn't you fucking get this guy? Why didn't you fucking get this person? Why didn't you fucking get that?" I know that's gonna happen.
It always happens.
It always happens, man. But you are all fantastic. I love talking with all of you. And again, it really means a lot. And by the way, Kyo, world first in very many cases, hoping to go for it again. The only unfortunate part is that you guys don't stream it because of how hardcore you're going at it, right? Kyo?
Wait, I'm sorry, what?
No, but you won't be streaming your Prague, right?
No streaming from us. We will. I mean, if we decide to stream, it will definitely be big news because we have no plans. So we'll let you know.
Yeah, I'm sure if someone gives you guys like 100,000 each stream, but anyways, we can go ahead and start wrapping this up. I appreciate everybody that came to watch this today. I love talking about different jobs and everything that the community is excited for. And healers, again, very, very exciting time for them. Even though some of the things that Momo said didn't sound very exciting, I think that overall,
I'm excited. I'm excited for Scholar. I'm excited for Sage. I think they're both going to be very interchangeable. I'm excited for Astral. I'm actually really excited for Astral Illusion.
Same.
I was like, as soon as like my co-healer is the one that plays Astro, and he was like really excited for Sage. I'm like, listen, you can play Sage if it's meta, but if Astro's meta too, I'm playing Astro.
Yeah, I mean, you'll have your one, right?
Yeah.
All right.
I've been on Astro hiatus since Creator, and I'm actually going to try after all this.
Creator, let's go.
It looks so exciting, man. I'm actually going to pick it back up for Endwalker. Play it a little bit.
Nice. All right. Well, that being said, again, thank you very much to Andre Kane for the music and the intro and the closing. Thank you very much to my wife, Kerr, who is halfway through the pregnancy now. So we're just about, I think, 4 or 5 months away from having a baby. So I appreciate it. I know she's going through a rough time with all that. And also, very much thank you to all the Patreons, all the supporters, all the everybody's. Next week, I'm not entirely sure what the topic's going to be because there's a handful of things that we need to talk about, but we got to pick which one we are going to talk about. So give me a little bit of time on that, and I'll announce that on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter, Frosty TV stream. For some reason, I wanted to make it really long, and I put all my updates there. Or you can just go to, I think it's MogTalk Tweets is the other Twitter for MogTalk. You all have a wonderful rest of your weekend. Until next time, be good, keep cool, stay frosty. Everybody say bye and wave. Bye!
Bye.
There we
Hey everyone, thanks for watching the show. I appreciate it. A couple of awesome people we gotta thank for supporting the show with Patreon. I'm gonna go ahead and start with a couple of communities. Awk Morning, a wonderful community that works on a website that helps with PvE resources. Then there's Teamcraft, which is a crafting resource if you want to work with others. Then there's Phase Temperance, which is an awesome community that puts together PvE events for raiders of all different types. Now, we also just have some really awesome people who help support the show. Dude is Antonio, D Fury, Daniel H, JJ, Megan C, Nami, Psyche, and Tagalong, and last but not least, Dirk. Thank you all for your extremely generous contributions through Patreon, and everyone else who supports on Patreon and Twitch subs, whatever you do. It really does mean a lot. We're going to have some pretty crazy shows coming up in the next few weeks, and I hope you stick around for them. Until then, be good. Bye!